for survival in a...
Only I can help wherever I know.
Alone! Thousands of them out there will never make it. There's nobody.
Where would you...
The last thing you should ever say to...
The following film is based on fact. In the mid-1970s, a family of tourists from Cleveland unwisely left the paved highway and drove off across the desert on an unmarked dirt road. Soon lost, they wandered onto a vast deserted bomb range, inhabited only by tarantulas, rattlesnakes, and a wild family of cannibals. By nightfall, the innocent vacation had become a brutal battle for survival, which left few alive.
Look, I can't make it today. I cannot go out in the desert.
Bobby's not feeling so hot today. I've never seen it this bad.
Oh, shit. Don't forget to set your clocks ahead 1 hour, because today ends daylight savings time.
I can't believe it. None of us remembered that. So what's so big deal about taking a little shortcut anyway? Jane?
Cass!
Roy? Jane? Sue! Snakey, snakey, snakey. People who live this far out usually have a reason. That crazy wild girl you guys were joking about back on the bus. That was me 8 years ago. Papa Jupe's big brother's here.
Hey! Hello!
We kill everybody, and we throw them down mine shafts.
You missed me! You missed me! Na, 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 na.
You never should have got off the road.
Oh, yeah?
I ain't the only crazy out here.
The Reaper sucks! I'm not gonna leave you!
Look out!
The hills still have eyes.
Hi, I'm Barbara Crampton from Chopping Mall, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to episode 55. This time, in case you hadn't guessed, we are going back and into, not the outback, whatever it is, out into the desert for The Hills Have Eyes, parts 1 and 2, which is Eric's choice. We are also going to be doing another top 3, so that cat will be making another appearance. And we're going to be doing top 3 dumbest slasher movie moments or character mistakes. So that should be quite a fun one to do. Well, before we get onto that, introduce you, as ever, to our fellow desert bunnies, or as I've written down, I nearly misread it as trannies, desert trannies, but I wrote bunnies. So anyway, it's either bunnies or trannies, I don't know. What are you wearing, Erik?
I am wearing a rather fetching Scooby-Doo t-shirt.
Okay.
It's green and it has Rut-Row Raggy written on it.
Okay, right. And stilettos.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Right.
Jimmy Choos.
Jimmy Choos. Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you doing over in Dublin? Have you escaped
sheltering
the snow?
from crappy weather, as I'm sure you are.
It's not too bad here, although it's, I think in the middle of England is and up to the north is completely under about 20 foot of snow. But
Oh, I had to leave work early yesterday because I wasn't feeling well, and the bus could only take, or the taxi actually could only take me so far, and I had to walk the rest of the way home because there was traffic chaos due to flooding.
Okay. Well,
welcome to Dublin.
Weather-ageddon.
Weather-ageddon, yeah.
Yes. Right, well, I'm glad you're with us in your stilettos and Scooby-Doo t-shirt.
Yeah.
And Nathan, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing a t-shirt that says The Breakfast Club on it, and it's got all the breakfast cereal cartoon characters. Count Chocula, the Trix Rabbit, Tony the Tiger.
Okay. I think you were wearing that one other podcast, weren't you? Because I remember Erik thought you had some breakfast down it.
It was many air ago. I thought it was appropriate since Joseph and I do these podcasts in the morning.
Yes, well, absolutely. As of course, as to remind our dear listeners, this is a transatlantic podcast, and so it's kind of, what is it, about 2:00 in the afternoon in England and Ireland, but in Tennessee, it's still 10:00 in the morning.
Yes, it is 10:18.
Just for this week only, because our summertime starts next week. Don't forget. Yeah, don't be like the characters in Hills of Eyes 2 and forget to put your clock forward.
I know, that would be a mistake.
Yeah.
But Joseph, what are you wearing?
I am wearing a ratty old mixed martial arts tournament tee and black shorts. And I have to let you know that the hills have eyes and they are green. Or possibly a beige color, I don't know.
My eyes are green.
So are mine.
Okay.
What color are your eyes, Justin?
Mine are hazel.
So are mine, just like Hazel Tankersley.
Oh, really? Just like... Oh, and she's famous.
She is famous.
And you're going to tell us, because you've done the filming now, haven't you, on Voodoo Massacre Part 2?
Yes,
is that correct?
I have.
And how did it go?
It went well. I mean, there were a few issues because it's difficult with that many actors, quote unquote. So, I had, some prima donnas that I had to take care of. Now that Hazel is famous, she wanted her own trailer, her own makeup artist. No, actually, I'm kidding. She didn't ask for anything. She's very humble.
Excellent. And did you? How were you filming it? Because obviously the older stuff was filmed on, your kind of stock kind of, presumably like a big kind of VHS or video recorder from back in the day. But now you can film things on with SLR, digital SLR with like lenses and all sorts of things. Were you still going old school with an old video camera, or how did you shoot it?
I shot it digital. Okay. I moved up.
But did you use different lenses and things like that, or are you still keeping it fairly kind of lo-fi?
I'm keeping it as cheap as possible to, sort of a throwback to how cheap the original ones were.
Okay, right. And did you get Ryan Seacrest or anyone coming for, was it Entertainment America?
Oh, yeah, I didn't get any interview. I mean, I did interviewed them and posted it on YouTube. If anybody wants to look up Voodoo Massacre interviews, you can look up, and I interviewed some of the cast about it.
Excellent. And when can we expect to see it? When's the grand opening?
Joseph? He's editing.
That would be when I get done editing it. Sorry. I've been a little busy, but I'm going to try to finish that up this week probably.
And how long will it be?
Sure.
Well, looking at the script and the footage, I'd say about 10 minutes maybe.
10 or 15, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
So will there be a special extra long version?
If you want to see a lot of outtakes and mistakes, then yeah. There are some lines my family just could not say, so I had to change them during filming.
You should have brought them hooked on phonics.
My aunt, she was supposed to say, "We need weapons."
Yeah.
She could not say that line for any reason, so I ended up having to cut it.
Was it stage fright?
Change it to "We want weapons." I think it's a triple W.
We want weapons. Get that 3 times. Turn the camera on, and she freezes.
Okay. And when
she didn't used to.
She used to, or she didn't used to?
She did not used to. I mean, in the past, she never did, but for some reason this time, she got the stage fright.
Okay. And are you going to have a grand...
Light so long, that's probably the reason.
You can have a grand family kind of get-together to watch it, like a...
I would like to, yes.
Premiere.
I think it'd be fun.
Gosh. Okay. Well, we sort of look forward to seeing that. So next, when it is up, you're going to post it on the Facebook group, aren't you, to let people know when it's ready? Is it going to make you go onto YouTube?
Yeah, I will upload it to YouTube. This will be free. Nobody has to pay for it.
Brilliant.
Except you have to pay with your time, that's all.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. We'll look forward to that. What else? Well, just before we get on, I just say I'm wearing, in case you're wondering, I'm wearing a chunky sweater.
Kit Kat.
No, chunky knit
cold?
sweater. It is cold. It's freezing here. Well, I've got the radiator on, but it's pretty cold.
It's cold here. It's raining as well.
Yeah, not.
Are you
good.
wearing bunny slippers, Justin?
No, I haven't got slippers on actually. I'm just got my feet underneath me on the chair. If that makes sense. But
I can't do that. It puts him to sleep.
Is it? Who's that? Who's barking?
That's probably Joseph's.
One of your menagerie.
Sorry, that was the noisy dogs. Anytime a car drives by, they let loose.
That's okay. We don't mind. We don't mind animals on this show, do we?
No.
So, right. Okay. Well, should we talk about what we've been watching recently? I think that might be good. And then we'll get on to our top 3 as ever, and then we shall return to the desert. So, who'd like to go first? Nathan, what have you been watching?
It has been so long since we've recorded. I can't remember what I've watched. Let's see. I don't think I've watched any, or like a whole lot of horror films. I watched Hairspray.
What, the remake or the original?
Really enjoyed both of them.
Right. Okay.
Ew.
But the original is much, much better. I'm just saying, because it's, I like John Waters.
Well, there's that new Divine documentary coming out soon, isn't there? It's kind of doing the rounds, doing the rounds of the festivals and stuff, and that looks really good.
What's the documentary on?
Divine.
Yeah, you said the documentary was Divine. What's it on?
It's on Divine. Oh, Joseph.
Yeah, it's Divine, but just kidding.
Is this the Who's On First?
Yeah, we're actually doing this. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes. So Nathan. But you haven't really watched any horror movies of note. You'll be too busy making classics, haven't you, to watch them?
I think that's my problem. I've been too busy working on one. I haven't had time to actually watch much.
Okay. Well, if you think anything comes back to mind, then interject. We'll pop over to Dublin. It's like the Eurovision Song Contest, isn't it? So, Erik, what have you been giving nil point to?
Well, it wasn't nil point. I'd give this maybe 7 points. Death Valley I watched.
Okay.
Which, of course, is that one with Peter Billingsley, who I think is the US equivalent of Giovanni Frezza. Because he looks kind of like the Milky Bar Kid with big Diana Prince glasses. And he is this young boy who's a bit of a twat, and he goes on vacation to Death Valley with his mother and her new boyfriend, and he unwittingly stumbles across a murder scene, picking up a vital clue on the way, and then ends up being targeted by a serial killer. And, it's by no means a classic, but there's a few things I really like about it. One is the great desert setting, which ties in nicely to the Hills of Eyes. There's a sequence set in a Wild West town where the characters, can't tell that one of the sort of cowboys is actually a real killer rather than an actor. And that has a quite suspenseful setup. And they're shoehorned into all this is this great sequence of oversexed teenagers in a camper van that obviously was thrown in at the last minute to make it fit more into the slasher genre. I got the Shout Factory Blu-ray, and it looks quite good. The only extra on it is a commentary track, which was a bit boring. But, the film itself looked pretty good. Not a classic. As I said, I'd give it probably about 7.
Did the commentary become tedious after a while, listening to people talk about the movie?
Yes, it did. It was it was with the a director who's called Dick Richards, whose real name is obviously Richard Richards, which is kind of bizarre name to give your child. But he doesn't really have much to say.
Is it got a lot of pauses and stuff like that in it?
That type of thing, and he goes off topic and talks about sort of TV stuff he did and blah blah blah.
Oh, I hate when they do that, when they don't talk much about the film itself. It's just about other things. And I'm like, let's get back to the movie.
Exactly.
Are you still smarting over that bad review, Erik, of our commentary of Savage Water?
Yes.
Oh, I think it was Joseph that brought up that line about, about it.
Oh, is that what that was in reference to?
Yeah, he was referencing...
Right.
The review of our commentary.
Well, in our defense, it was very difficult to find background information on these films because we weren't involved in them, whereas Dick Richards was the director of Death Valley, so he really should have something to say.
Well, absolutely.
Well, the good thing is we have a 97% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Do we?
No,
we don't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
we did get a mention in the latest issue of Fangoria. In there, just the name, The Hysteria Continues. It's in their coming up section at the front, coming out on DVD this month.
Okay.
Obviously before the DVD was pulled, and it says with commentary by The Hysteria Continues.
Ooh, I'll have to go buy that.
Yeah, it's the one with Carrie on the front. The original Spacek. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, most of the reviews have been very positive, haven't they?
Yeah.
So it's just the one in a website that will remain nameless, horrordvds.com, that was slightly less complimentary. And it was really sad actually because it was very complimentary about me, but it was not so complimentary about you three, and I think I feel really
it's nice of you to mention
for
that,
you.
Justin.
Sorry,
it's very nice of you to mention that.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, I didn't want to,
Well, at least they didn't mention us by name, unlike that one who got my name wrong.
Yeah, but at least they were
Joseph
nice about
Hinton.
Yeah.
I'm just going to change my name to Hinton now.
It's your accent. People couldn't understand when you were trying to say your last name.
It's Hanson, Joseph Hanson.
Well, also the other film is coming out, isn't it? With our commentary on it, twins with what's it? Something horror.
The Hallowed Dungeon. I can't remember.
The Dungeon of Harrow.
Dungeon of
the
Harrow,
Dungeon of Harrow.
Yes. So our other one for Invitation to what was it?
Death
by Invitation.
Death by Invitation is coming out shortly. So anyway, that's all by the by. So. But actually, we do just actually talking about Savage Water, very possibly to make up for people not being able to get the DVD, or quite a few of them did get out. So some people have seen it and heard a commentary. Is that we actually have an interview with one of the stars of Savage Water, which we may or may not be able to bring as a little extra to you in the coming weeks. So so you have to keep your fingers crossed for that one. But Erik, sorry, back to you. We've gone off tangent. Have you? Been watching anything?
The other one I watched was, it's not a horror, but it's bloody weird. It was called The Forbidden Zone. It's a 1980 movie by Richard Elfman. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's kind of a surreal musical fantasy slapstick musical. I've said musical already, haven't I? It concerns a portal in the basement of a house that leads to the Forbidden Zone of the title, which is ruled by a king played by Hervé Villechaize, the short actor from Fantasy Island and The Man with the Golden Gun.
The plane.
That's it. And Susan Tyrrell is the queen. Of course, she was in Night Warning. Apparently, they were a real-life couple for a while.
What, her and the little guy?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah,
there you go. Anyway, the inhabitants of the house above the portal all slip in some way into the Forbidden Zone, and the route from the house to the Forbidden Zone is through this kind of intestine, and then you come out through this pair of buttocks into the Forbidden Zone. Yeah, it's very, very bizarre. It's all filmed on very low budget sets, like you'd see in a high school play. They're all sort of painted sets. There's lots of undercranked camera, so the action's kind of sped up in places. There's lots of animated interludes, like in Monty Python. And you have these pantomime performances by absolutely bizarre characters, including one who's a giant toad. You have topless princesses. You have these characters who can't stop bumming everyone they meet. It reminds me a lot. I don't know, Justin, you might have seen Noel Fielding's Luxury Comedy, which ran on Channel 4 last year.
I didn't see it, but I know of it. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it has that very DIY surrealism, and I actually quite liked it. The problem is that for 74 minutes, it kind of does wear thin towards the end. But for the most part, I was intrigued by just how. I mean, you won't see anything quite like it. It's part of a project because Richard Elfman is, of course, Danny Elfman's brother, and they were both in a band called Oingo Boingo. And this was kind of
a dead man's party. Who can ask for more? Yes.
This is kind of a film version of the kind of rough idea of the stage show they were doing at the time, which must have been pretty darn bizarre. But I would recommend a viewing of it because it's just, I mean, if there is a polar opposite to Transformers 3, then it has to be Forbidden Zone.
Yeah, Danny Elfman is also in the film as Satan.
He is indeed.
It's an Elfman. It's like an Elfman family reunion. You got Richard Elfman, Danny Elfman, and somebody else. One of the other Elfmans was in it.
Yes, his Richard Elfman's wife is in it. She's French.
Yeah,
she plays the main character in it.
Marie Pascal Elfman.
That's it. And most, apart from Susan Tyrrell and Hervé Villechaize, the majority of the cast are band members or friends. So the acting isn't quite brilliant, but I think it works in its favour.
Do you know the connection between Danny Elfman and Susie and the Banshees?
Oh dear.
They both dislike Toya.
I do. Susie and the Banshees wrote a song for Batman. Which one? Batman
Returns,
and Susan the Banshees. Yeah, and Danny Elfman did the score.
That's right. Well, they worked together on the track.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
The one, what's it called? Face to Face, isn't it?
Face to Face. That's right. Which Batman movie had Toya in it?
And the best one, I think. The best one.
Okay.
Probably Batman and Robin.
The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Was that a laugh?
No, I was clearing my throat, Erik. Let's move on. Have you watched anything else?
No.
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Joseph, what have you been watching?
I've watched a few. I watched the Irish clown horror comedy called Stitches.
I met that director at the Horathon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I haven't seen
Anyway, it's these really obnoxious kids end up accidentally killing this clown during a birthday party, and he comes back from the dead and just goes to this big teen party and just starts picking them off. And I don't know, I didn't find any of the comedy really funny. It's extremely gory. I mean, it's one of the goriest movies I've ever seen in my life. And, for that, it gets a few points. There's one funny part. Actually, there's two. There's one where this guy's getting killed to the cutting crews. I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight. I thought was kind of humorous. And another part where the clown is chasing someone, but he's riding a tricycle, and when he starts to go uphill, he's like out of breath because he's like an alcoholic. And I thought that was funny. But for the most part, the characters are very obnoxious, and the comedy is very obnoxious. And I think it kind of just wears out its welcome after about an hour. So I don't know, meh.
Okay, I've not seen it.
I want to see it.
What about
you
you,
like
Erik?
the gore. The gore is just outrageous. I was like shocked at how gory it was.
Joseph, before you go into your next film, I actually remembered one, and it's because you said the characters were obnoxious. I did watch Blood Night, The Legend of Mary Hatchet.
Molly Hatchet.
Oh my goodness, Molly Hatchet.
Is it Mary or Molly?
I don't know. Something Hatchet.
Mary.
Molly Hatchet's a group, a musical group, I think. I can't remember.
Oh
anyway,
my goodness. Oh God, these characters. I was rooting for the killer. That's all I can say. Oh, and can I just say, spoiler. Sorry, everybody. Spoiler for the Hatchet movie, not the Blood Night movie. When you have 6 people, 3 guys and 3 girls, at the end of a hallway, and a 100-pound female killer, standing at the other end of the hallway, why is everybody screaming and running away from her? I mean, she don't have a gun, and there's 6 people. I mean, I think they could just rush right at her and take her down.
I haven't seen that for ages, but I did see it a couple of years ago, and I remember Danielle Harris is in that, isn't she?
Yes, she is. I love Danielle Harris, though. She's very sweet.
Yeah, but is she quite annoying in that as well? They're all annoying, aren't they?
Yeah, the writer just wrote all the characters to be just very, I don't know, just the kind of characters you're like, who would want to hang out with these people and be friends with them?
Very, very strange. But Erik, have you seen that? Or have you seen Stitches?
No, I haven't seen it. I think I've seen Blood Night. It rings a bell, but I haven't seen Stitches yet, no.
Okay. Well, is anything else you want to say about that, Nathan? Or...
Yeah, that's the only one I could think of. So
okay, right. Well, Joseph, what else have you been watching? Anything else pop up?
I watched a movie called Amber Alert, which was another one of those found footage movies. But this time, this couple are auditioning for a reality show, and so basically, they're filming themselves going about the town, yimmering and yammering, and they see an Amber Alert on the freeway, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a big sign. It's like a digital sign that says a child has been kidnapped and it was last seen in this particular car. And so they see that Amber Alert, and then like a few minutes later, they actually see the car. So they start following him around, and the girl of the story becomes obsessed trying to save the little girl from the guy who's apparently a violent, pedophile or something. And it's a pretty neat idea, but unfortunately, I can say this: this is the found footage movie with the single worst characters I've ever had to watch. They're very, very shrill, constantly. They never shut up, and they raise their voices. At one point in the movie, the guy holding the camera in the back seat says, "Will you two shut up and stop arguing?" And I was like, "Thank you. Just be quiet and just follow the guy around." If they'd done that, it would have been a pretty interesting movie, but putting up with these people is just tough. And it's a neat idea for a movie. I mean, at the end, it does generate a little bit of suspense, but, I just couldn't get past the characters. They were just so awful. So if you like found footage movies, maybe, I don't know. If you don't like found footage movies, you definitely won't like this one. So take that for what you will.
Okay. Right. Well, you're the found footage king, aren't you?
I like them. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I find them to be a lot of fun. I know they're cheap and they use the same tactics, and people should put the camera down. But gosh darn it, I like them.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, just a couple more. I watched The Imposter with it's a documentary about this family whose child disappears, and then like a few years later, I think they live in some backwoods town in Ohio or something like that. Texas. I can't remember where. Texas, yeah, Texas. But a few years later, they find out they find him in Spain or France. I can't remember.
Spain.
Yeah, Spain. But anyway, so they bring him home, but it turns out this kid is not their kid. It's some guy pretending to be their kid just so he can, get out of that country and into America. And the whole time you're thinking, how can this family be so dumb as to not realize this is not their kid? And you're arguing, you're like, well, this family's so dumb that the person that's going to find out that this is not their kid is going to be some outside, person who has nothing to do with the family. And that's what happens. And, for the most part, I was thinking, this is kind of disappointing because how can you feel sorry for this family because they're so dumb? But there's a really good twist. I'm not going to spoil it. Not really near the end, well, close to the end, but it kind of elevated the film like way up there. And then my interest was just like peaked. I was like, wow, this is taking a really interesting turn. So it's a really good documentary and it's filmed really well. The way they do a lot of fades and segues into different scenes is just really neat. So if you happen across that, I'd definitely recommend that.
So is it like a faux documentary?
No, it's a real documentary. It really happened. So yeah, it's just filmed. It's almost filmed like it's a faux documentary, but it's really well directed and it's really well put together. And like I said, for the most part, you'll be kind of disappointed for the first half, but then it just takes that turn, and you're like, whoa, what just happened? And it's just really interesting. I'd definitely recommend it.
Cool. Okay, we'll look out for that. And you say you got one more?
I got two more. I watched the Hypothermia. It has Michael Rooker from The Walking Dead and Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And this is like Z-grade schlock done like in an art house type manner. Michael Rooker is like really good in it, but the rest of the actors are really terrible. And it's basically this family goes ice fishing, and there's basically this sea creature under the water. And he starts picking them off one by one, or you'd actually hope, because not a lot of people die. Only a few people die. And the problem is, like I said, the acting is abysmal, and only Michael Rooker seems to be, kind of giving a performance. And I would have liked it better if they'd kept the creature in the dark, because when they reveal what the creature looks like, it's so cheap and like it just looks like a guy in a rubber mask, and it was so disappointing. It has a lot of good ideas, and I kind of liked it that it was trying to do this Z-grade, monster movie in sort of an elevated manner. But for the most part, it doesn't really go anywhere. So I wouldn't really recommend it.
Okay, I've seen that advertised, but I've not seen that one.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you want to round it off? What was the last one?
Yeah, the last one's not a horror movie at all, and it's one I actually missed out on. A lot of people, seem to like it. Was Kick-Ass, the superhero. Well, it's not really. I guess it's a superhero crime comedy movie, but I've had it up to here with superhero movies, and people kept recommending this because it's funny and violent. So I watched it and I loved it. I mean, it was so over the top, violent and funny. I mean, there's so many funny scenes in it. It's just like it takes the piss out of these superhero movies and makes you realize that they really are just kind of silly, trying to be, art movies when they're really just dumb people in masks going around, saving people. And this movie, like I said, it's so violent, and they have a little girl. Her name is she calls herself Hit Girl, and she's basically Nicolas Cage's daughter, and he's training her to, take out these mobsters. And she's so unapologetic in her violence and, her swearing and stuff. And she's like this little 10-year-old girl, like 4 foot tall, weighs like 60 pounds. And she ends up just slaughtering these people left and right. and it's just so violent and gory and just over the top fun, and I really enjoyed that. Probably more than anything I've seen horror wise in the last month or so. I mean, it was just a lot of fun, and I know they're making a sequel, and Jim Carrey's supposed to be in it. I'm kind of looking forward to it. It seems like it'd be kind of a fun movie, but yeah, I actually enjoyed this. So people who kept telling me to watch it, I finally did, and I liked it.
Excellent. Yeah, I quite enjoyed Kick-Ass. So,
oh, you saw it?
Yeah,
oh,
I saw it too.
Yeah, I saw it ages ago. Yeah, you're a bit late to the party, Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get with the program,
girlfriend.
girlfriend.
I don't know. I just didn't really want to see it, and I finally did, and I really, really liked it a lot.
Yeah, it caused a wave of controversy over here because of a girl saying the C word.
Yeah, she calls them cunts. That's funny.
Yeah. But apparently that was too much for some people in the UK and Ireland.
The Daily Mail.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
But that was it. Chloe Moretz. I mean, she's going to be Carrie, isn't she? She's the in the Carrie remake.
Yeah, she's really good in this movie. I mean, I was like rooting for her the whole time. Excuse me.
Cool.
But
okay.
that's it. That's it. That's
excellent.
all I got.
Well, thank you, Joseph. I'll just rattle through a few that I've seen. One that is a kind of semi-found footage movie, which I watched the other night, was Lovely Molly, which is
I've seen that. Yeah.
Eduardo Sanchez, who did one of the people behind the Blair Witch Project, and you might have already talked about it on the show. I'm not sure, but it's just very quickly. It's essentially a story about a young woman and her husband moved back to the family home after being away for years, and he's a trucker, so he's away a lot, and basically she starts hearing voices. And her mental health starts collapsing, and you're not really sure whether or not she's slightly going mad because she used to be a drug user, or there is something supernatural going on. And it's kind of a mixture of found footage or video, sort of found footage and sort of kind of normal narrative, I kind of guess. I liked it. I didn't like it a lot, but I liked the fact that the characters were like, she was a cleaner in a high school. I think it was a high school anyway, and her husband was like had to go out on the roads as to make money as a trucker. And so it was quite interesting to get the characters like that, which you don't tend to see in many American horror films. You don't really see that kind of working class stuff that often. So that was quite good. It didn't really work overall, but there were some quite creepy moments, I thought, especially towards the end when you actually kind of realise what's going on. And there's a couple of very effective scares in there, I thought, and the one scene, especially towards the end, I thought was very, very creepy. But yeah, so for me. But you said you've seen that, Joseph?
Yeah, I'm just looking back because sometimes when I watch these movies, like a movie I haven't seen, I'll post it on Facebook with like a little blurb. And apparently I gave it a low rating. I said it had good acting and imagery, but I thought it was a dull and pretentious mess.
Yeah. Oh, it was okay. I mean, it just didn't quite work, but I thought it was interesting. How about you, Erik and Nathan? Have you seen it?
No. After giving out to Joseph about not seeing Kick-Ass, I haven't seen Lovely Molly.
No. Okay. Well, that was that. Another couple of quick ones. One was a Spanish thriller by one of the directors of Wreck, which was Sleep Tight. Which was really, really good, actually. I definitely recommend that. And again, that's just a story of somebody, a sociopath, who essentially every night he's the doorman for this kind of apartment building in Madrid or somewhere in Spain, and he drugs a woman and he sleeps with her or sleeps beside her every night. And before she wakes up, he leaves in the morning. And when she wakes up, she has no recollection of him being there. So basically, he carries on this kind of relationship with her. But she doesn't realise it, and he starts getting more and more frustrated when she doesn't fall for him. So he starts doing horrible things to her, like putting bugs and stuff in her apartment, and putting injecting stuff into her makeup, so it makes her come out in hives and things like that. And it's a clever film. So that's just come out on Blu-ray or DVD in the UK. So got that in Love Film. Again, is that one anyone seen?
Yeah, I saw it in the cinema.
Okay.
I really liked it. I like the fact that even though he's despicable, you still end up rooting for him all the way through the film, I found.
Yeah, which is strange, isn't it?
You didn't want him to be caught, basically.
No. Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's it's clever thing, isn't it? Because the whole turned it around, doesn't it? All the scenes where you would normally have somebody like the hero or the heroine was trying to escape or trying not to get caught, by the killer, it flips on its head, doesn't it? Because he's always the one who's trying to get out of the apartment without being seen. And like you say, it's quite clever that way. So,
but really good, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And
it reminds me a lot of.
Sorry,
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast when it reminded me of that Hilary Swank movie. What's it called? The Resident?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was awful, wasn't it? That was one of the hammer misfires.
Yeah. I thought The Resident was okay.
It was all right, but it was.
I think Sleep Tight does the same thing much better, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the last film I saw, which is probably, it's difficult to describe really. It sounds, if you describe it, it sounds like a slasher movie, and it's not. In fact, it's kind of an anti-thriller. It's kind of, you're talking about an art house film, but this is a Russian film called How I Ended This Summer. And essentially, it's the story of two men who are meteorologists on a very far-flung island, and they're out there to measure the weather, and it's just very tedious. But the older man tells the younger man that years ago, the two men out there, one of them went mad and murdered the other one, and he starts becoming more and more erratic in his behaviour. So the younger man's kind of a bit nervous, and then over the radio comes through like a message saying that the older man's family has been in a plane crash and are possibly dead, and they tell him to tell the older man, and the younger man doesn't tell him because he's worried. But it doesn't actually say why he doesn't tell him, but you kind of get the idea that he's worried because if he does, the older man will flip out. And essentially, the older man finds out that the young man hasn't told him, and he does flip out and starts... and then there's this whole kind of cat and mouse around the island, and you're not really sure whether or not he's actually chasing him because he wants to kill him or talk to him. So it's playing it in a really it's really ambiguous manner. But like I say, it's kind of an anti-thriller because it goes on for about 2 hours, and there's like 10-minute shots of someone walking towards a mountain. So it's very slow-paced, but it's almost slightly hypnotic. But it's one of those films I was watching it. I found it quite boring when I was watching it, but slightly hypnotic. But it kind of made me think afterwards. So it's kind of the anti-slasher movie, anti-thriller, but put through an art house blender. But if you have a tolerance for that kind of thing, it might be worth a watch. But I take it none of you have seen that. It's not one I would imagine.
No.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
No. Okay. Well, there's one to add to your list if you wanted to. But okay. Well, I think we've rattled through those. So I think it's probably time we move on to our top three. So it's going to be that cat shortly. But before we get to that, this is going to be top three dumbest slasher moments or character mistakes. Erik, do you want to go first with number three?
My number three is from the slasher movie Madman, and it's where I can't remember the character's name, but she's running from the title character, and she decides that the best hiding place would be in the fridge. Quite why you'd want to lock yourself into an airtight container that has no handle on the inside, I don't know. Although when I went back to quickly rewatch the scene, she doesn't actually pull the door shut. She just leaves it slightly ajar, which I suppose isn't that bonehead a move. But still, like when she's hiding from him, she has to open the fridge, take out all the contents, take out all the shelves, and then crawl inside. So if Madman walks into the kitchen, he'll see all the sort of the eggs and the milk all over the floor and go, okay, she's obviously in the fridge. But I mean, she ends up getting killed shortly after that, not because she was hiding in the fridge, but just for other reasons. But I think the fridge as a hiding place is a pretty bonehead move in general. I mean, you can give out all you want about women running up the stairs with their bras off in slasher movies, but there's nothing quite as silly as hiding in a fridge, unless you're trying to escape a nuclear blast like in Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, I think it's a famously silly move, isn't it? And that woman, I quite like her in the film, but she plays scared in a really cheesy manner, doesn't she? She's all teeth.
Yeah.
Yes, and she also has that scene where Madman's killing someone and she's hiding in the bushes, and Madman has absolutely no idea that she's there. Absolutely none. So she could just be quiet, and he would never know. But as soon as she sees it, she starts screaming. And completely alerts Madman to where she is.
Yeah.
Just like Amy Steele doing the wee under the bed.
Yes, or the rat.
In her defense, she drank beer all night. That really goes right through you.
It does, in fairness, yeah. It does.
Excellent. Well, Joseph, have you got anything to say about that one?
I am in agreement.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Eric, for your number 3. I shall look forward to seeing what your big number 2 is. Nathan, do you want to tell us what your number 3 is?
My number 3 is from Evil Laugh, and I'm going to spoil the very ending, so if people haven't seen Evil Laugh, you need to skip ahead. Have all 3 of you seen it?
Yes.
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, basically, the plot line is, these students go to this house and they get picked off one by one. Well, at the end, there are 2 survivors, and one's Barney, and he is the guy that knows all about horror movies and the heroine. So at the end, they defeat the killer, and the heroine is in her apartment, and it's supposed to be after everything is all settled. And she hears a knock at the door, and she goes to check it, and the killer's there, wearing the mask and everything, and is stalking her, and she's screaming and upset, and the killer lunges for her, and then takes off the mask, and it's her friend Barney playing a prank on her. And I'm just thinking, what a stupid thing to do. I mean, all your friends were just murdered by this person, and you're going to dress up like them and scare the only other person that survived it with you. Does that make any sense?
I know.
That anybody would be that callous. And then at the end, I love the very ending, though, because the heroine, obviously, from the scare, she's kind of gone a little, loopy, and she sees some scissors, and she's just like, okay, I'm going to take care of him. So he probably got a good payback for that little prank of his. But it was such a dumb moment. And that movie's full of dumb moments. I love it, but it is. But, just the ending is just so over the top to me.
I know, it's just kind of, you imagine that if you'd been through that ordeal, you wouldn't end with a joke, would you?
No, I don't think I would want to play a prank like that on somebody that I survived a massacre with.
No, absolutely.
We talk about tactless and in very, very poor taste. The girl's fiance was butchered, and you're going to dress up like the murderer. and then also think it's a funny joke.
Yeah, and also the kind of like you're running the risk of being killed, aren't you, yourself?
Oh, yeah. That was the whole thing with, some movies where it turns out that somebody's playing a prank. I'm like, you could have gotten killed.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the end of Night School with the cop in the car at the end.
No, it's exactly like that, isn't it? There's loads of films, isn't it? In fact, there's in Hills of Ice Part 2, that starts like that as well, doesn't it? And I'm surprised more people don't get stabbed to death at the beginning of slasher movies when they play jokes.
Yes.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Nathan. Joseph, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my number 3 is it's a bit of a cheat because it's not technically a movie. It's the TV series Harper's Island, which is a slasher TV series. But I know since a lot of people have been talking about that lately, I decided to pick it. It's basically late in the season, one of the characters has a gun on the killer while he's killing someone. I mean, she has a clear shot. And the gun is obviously loaded. And he's at one point he's even got his back to her where she can shoot him to stop him from hurting anyone else. And she just stands there. She doesn't run. She doesn't throw the gun. She doesn't shoot. She doesn't say stop. She just stands there. And it goes on for like a few minutes. And you're like, why aren't you pulling the trigger? And they do this a lot in a lot of films. But watching this again recently, it just really stuck out to me. So that's why I included it. It's just a really dumb thing to do. I mean, it's a way to prolong the plot, and I think it's really lazy and cheap as well, on top of being stupid.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I think that's unfortunately, or fortunately, a lot of slasher movies hinge on stupidity, don't they, to keep the story going? Because often, if people turn the car around or didn't go to the old house or whatever, it would be a very short movie, wouldn't it? But yeah, sometimes, that's why we're here today ridiculing or, in a good-natured way, some of the more stupid things. But you would have thought a film, not a film, but like a TV series in the last few years might not fall into that kind of trap. But
they
yes,
did.
They did, yes. Excellent. Any other thoughts on that from anyone?
I haven't seen Harper's Island. So.
Oh, no, you haven't. So okay.
It really is a good series, though. I mean, aside from that dumb moment, it really is a fun series. So I still recommend you watch it, Eric.
Yeah.
I will. It's on my to-do list, along with Justin.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Ew.
Oh, what? Eric, were you propositioning me?
Sorry?
I think...
Did you just proposition me?
No, I'm only joking.
I'm beginning to think that Justin is the You begin to think Justin is the Brian of the podcast and Erik is the Stewie trying to have sex.
Ew, no.
God, Erik. Good. I don't know what to say.
I just don't know how to finish the sentence, and that just popped out my mouth.
Well, I think we'll move swiftly on, shall we, Erik?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well. Yes. I'm. Okay. Well, my number 3 is one we've already talked about quite a lot, so I won't go into much details. But mine is one of my favourite ones. Is Jeannie in A House on Sorority Row when she's in the kitchen and the killer's coming in after her, and rather than running through to all the party and everyone there, she takes a kitchen knife, which is a good thing to do, but then runs upstairs to the dorm rooms where she eventually gets attacked and decapitated with her head in the toilet. And all she needed to do really was to run into a different room. And I think it would have been, I just don't understand why she didn't do it. But obviously I can understand that they needed to create suspense and as I've said before, it's kind of if slasher movies just had lots of sensible people doing lots of sensible things, they wouldn't go very far. So that's my number 3. So, but we've spoken about that before. Unless anyone's got any burning desire to talk about it a little bit more, we might get onto that pesky cat.
I just want to say I love that scene. And when I interviewed her, she agreed with us that it was very ridiculous for Jeannie to have done that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Well, Erik, if you stop thinking about me long enough, I will.
Okay, now I'm getting creeped out. Yeah.
Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
What's that from?
Okay, Erik, what's your big number 2?
Okay, my big number 2 is from... Okay, I ran this by you before. This is definitely a slasher film. It's House by the Cemetery. The Lucio Fulci film. And this is probably more a what the bleep moment rather than a dumb bonehead move. But it's the scene where Catriona MacColl comes downstairs and finds the nanny of the house, or the housekeeper, clearing up this big puddle of blood on the kitchen floor. And what happened the day before is that an estate agent came around for some reason, and she was murdered with a poker in quite gory fashion with blood everywhere. And then the killer dragged her down to the basement, leaving a big trail of blood. And yet these two women just have this conversation, this casual conversation, typical every day, whilst she's cleaning up this huge big puddle of blood, and neither of them are questioning, like, where did the blood come from? Why is it there? Why is there a big trail of it leading down to the basement? I could kind of forgive it if it was in The Beyond, because that has kind of a surreal feel to it. But The House by the Cemetery is a much more standard, plot-driven film by Lucio Fulci standards, so it really sticks out like a sore thumb. But I think it's kind of a fun moment. You're just sitting there going aghast. Like, if I find a puddle of blood in the kitchen, I'd be like, ah!
Would you scream like that?
Yeah,
like a girl.
Would. Yeah, like a girl at a Wham concert.
I bet you would know what that would be like, Erik, wouldn't you?
I do.
He's not only the president of their fan club, he's also a member.
Are you a member?
Is that rude?
I don't know. Is it rude? Well, it's
Ooh, how am I going to get all this lot in? Blimey, you have got a lot there.
So,
yes.
No, I
anyway,
agree.
House by the Cemetery, yes. It is a slasher film, apparently.
Well, I think it definitely...
I think it's slasher enough. It's a monster. It's one man killing people, so...
Yes. And also, if you watch it, I think it's only because we think of it as being part of the zombie, the whole thing. And, of course, it has got a zombie in it, but it's a zombie killing people, isn't it? And certainly the beginning of the film, with the teenagers in the house, is very much, I think, Lucio Fulci trying to capitalise or cash in on the slasher movie boom.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it's a good choice.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, right, well...
Great movie.
It is a great movie, I think, as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, Nathan, do you want to come in after this? Okay, what's your big number 2?
My big number 2 is from a fantastic film called Crazy Fat Ethel Part 2. What was that?
Nothing.
So there's a scene where, there's a chase scene in the film where Ethel's psychiatrist decides to come to the halfway house to check on her. And when he gets there, Ethel pulls out a giant butcher knife and chases him around the room. And what is incredibly stupid about this man should easily be able to outrun Ethel. But for some reason, he's doing kind of a light jog around the room, and they just run in circles for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. They just keep running in a big circle with her chasing him. And then he just does like a little, it's not even a jog. It's like a power walk towards the front door, and she just stabs him from behind. So I'm thinking, he had all the urgency of, like a tortoise trying to get away from a predator.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Well,
that's probably my favorite. That's my favorite scene from that movie.
The chase scene?
The chase around the table in the living room, yeah.
Mm. There wasn't much else to choose from, really, though, was there?
No, the whole movie is great. What are y'all talking about?
Nathan, we have watched it.
Yeah.
Oh. My bad.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad you managed to squeeze some Crazy Fat Ethel in there, because we know how much it means to you. Yes, excellent. Right, well, thank you, Nathan. Joseph, are you ready for your big number 2?
Give it to me.
Okay.
My number 2 is technically, I think they were going for like a comical moment, but it's still dumb of the character from Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Basically, this girl and her boyfriend, the boyfriend's played by Tony Goldwyn, they're driving through Camp Crystal Lake or in the backwoods, and they see Jason standing in the middle of the road. So, he says he's going to get a gun out and go after him, and she's like, any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly, according to horror films. So he grabs the gun and goes out and tries to shoot Jason, but Jason ends up impaling him and throwing him over his shoulder. So, she tries to escape from him, and the dumb part, I guess, like I said, I think they're going for comedy, but it's still dumb, is like Jason's standing over her, ready to kill her, so she offers him money. And she just saw her boyfriend, like, get, impaled and then thrown. I don't think this guy's going to be, motivated by, money. And she's, like, holding her credit cards and cash up, and she's like, please, I'll give you anything. And then I think the punchline is that when he actually ends up killing her, all her money goes into the little mud puddle. So I don't know. I just thought it was a stupid thing to do. You're going to try to save yourself by offering money from someone who's obviously going to kill you anyway. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I suppose to be fair, she didn't know he was, maybe because doesn't her credit card rise to the top?
Yeah. I wonder. Sometimes I wonder what would Jason do if he went on a shopping spree.
Or buy
himself new underpants, I'd hope.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's got? They'd be particularly horrendous.
I dread to think the state of Jason's underpants.
Well, people don't appear to smell him, do they? In the films?
No, true.
So maybe he does kind of douche.
If Jason's in Hills of Eyes, ew. What? If Jason was in Hills of Eyes Part 2, the blind girl would probably smell him coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
The psychic blind girl. We'll come on to her. Well, not literally, but so. Well, thank you, Joseph. Anything else you want to say about that one?
No. I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I'll give myself a little. Okay, well, mine's from a giallo. My big number 2. It's it's a kind of it is a giallo, I kind of guess, but it's a Spanish. It's a Paul Naschy film, A Dragonfly for Each Corpse, and I haven't seen it for years and years and years. I was having a real tough time actually trying to put together this list. I don't know why. I think you'd got all the good ones. But this one was something that reminded me, and I haven't rewatched the scene to double check I'm right, but from my review on Hysteria Lives, there's obviously a mad killer going around killing people. Obviously it's a giallo, but there's an exotic dancer, and what she does is, even though she knows there's a mad killer going around, she's also a kind of prostitute, I kind of guess. And she gets asked to this sexy little game, which is basically get into a coffin and play dead, and then the killer kills her. And it always just made me laugh, thinking that if there's a killer in the vicinity, why on earth would you get into a coffin and play dead? But it kind of wraps it up quite nicely. I kind of guess in some ways that you've got, it's probably the neatest kill in slasher movie history, I would imagine. But that's my big number 2. I don't. You probably hadn't anyone else seen that film?
I've seen it, but I can't remember the scene.
Yeah.
I saw it a long time ago. I don't really remember anything about it.
No.
Same here.
And I may have completely misremembered it, but that's what I remember. But hopefully I'll make up for that with my number 1. And talking number 1s, Erik, do you want to tell us...
yes, my number 1 is a Giallo also.
Weird not having anybody come on you.
Sorry.
What is that line from?
It sounds like Robert Davi.
I'm not going to tell you now.
Oh.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. I had a difficult time putting this list together as well. Even though there's 1,000,001 bonehead moves in slasher movies, it was hard to pinpoint one. This is from Death Carries a Cane, which is a Giallo from the 70s. It's kind of a plot, a character flaw that happens in a lot of Giallo. In this case, it's an old woman called Martha who knows who committed the murder at the start of the movie that set the whole thing up. And she offers the hero, Alberto, the information in exchange for $2,000, as she says, even though it's set in Italy. And even though anyone who has witnessed the murder or who was able to identify the murderer has turned up dead, this woman says she'll only divulge the information in person. She won't tell him over the phone. So, of course, before our hero Alberto can get there, she's dead. And this happens in a number of Giallos where people think that they can blackmail the killer, or they have a vital clue, but they won't give it to somebody over the phone. They have to see them in person. I mean, I don't know why people do that. It's just, of course, she ends up dead, as we can predict.
That's greed for you, isn't it?
That is greed. Mm.
Yeah, that's the lesson there. Don't be greedy.
Exactly.
Especially if there's a psychotic killer on the loose.
Right. Why would you want to blackmail the killer? I've never understood this in a lot of Giallos, is you want to blackmail the killer and you want the killer to meet you at some secluded place.
I know.
And this person is a killer. I mean, they've murdered. Like, what makes you think they'd have any problem murdering you, too?
You don't have to tell me, girl. It's totes ridic. Do you like my young people talk?
Yes, Erik, you're down with the young uns, aren't you?
I am, totes.
Mm. So
that's the only word I know.
Is it?
You're about as hip as Bob Hope at a USO show.
Right. Okay. Well. Yes. Well, thank you, Erik, for your number 1. Anything else you wanted to say about that?
Totes.
Well, thank you for that. Nathan, what is your number 1?
Number 1 is from Wrong Turn, Part 4, Bloody Beginnings. And, it's the standard wrong turn, formula, a group of teenagers, and gets stranded and get picked off by the mutant family. And in this one, they're in like an old abandoned, psych ward, like a mental hospital. And, they come up with a decent idea of trapping the killers. And, they finally get them trapped in a cell and they lock them in like a cell. And one of the guys, starts dousing them with, I guess it was kerosene, gasoline, I don't know, but, something flammable, and it's going to burn them. And then the girl who plays the heroine stops him and says, no, you can't burn them alive. We'll be no better than they are. And, gives this, ridiculous speech about how, they're better people than the mutants, and you cannot kill them because that would be the wrong thing to do. And, obviously they all decide that the best thing to do is not to kill the mutants. And then, of course, the mutants break out of that cell and kill all of them instead. So, I mean, I guess they kind of deserved it for being idiots. But the whole time I'm watching that scene, I mean, I just thought they should have left that scene out of the movie because it is unbelievably stupid. I can't imagine anybody being this stupid.
I guess it's kind of, if you were in that position yourself and you wanted, you're not used to that kind of violence, then you might sort of, think twice about taking a human life.
I don't know. I just keep thinking I would have done it immediately because, I mean, they watched these mutants completely, skin their friend alive and eat him. I mean, I would be terrified that if I didn't do anything that they would get out, because they lived at this asylum. So, I mean, they know how to get out of all these rooms and stuff. They know the tricks of the trade.
Well, that is just stupid then, isn't it? So no wonder it was your number one.
Well, I mean, in every slasher movie, it's like, just make sure Michael Myers is dead before you walk out of the house. And they never do, apart from Jamie Lee Curtis at the end of H2O. But then that backfired on her as well. So,
oh well, indeed, yes,
yeah.
It's true. This happens a lot more than we think about it. I guess the reason this one kind of stuck out is they actually have a long discussion about why not to do it. Whereas, I guess in like Friday the 13th, Alice, how many times does she get the upper hand on Mrs. Voorhees and then runs away?
Yeah. And all Mrs. Voorhees has in response is to throw a piece of string at her. Oh, no. Alice throws the piece of string at Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah, she takes the little bitty thing you're on, the little string wrapped around it and throws it.
Yeah.
What is that going to do?
Maybe she's allergic to string.
Maybe.
It'll bring her out in a rash.
Yes.
Take that and that. It's sort of like the girl at the beginning who, at the very beginning of Friday the 13th, she's like throwing empty cardboard boxes at her.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Great. Well, thank you, Nathan. Another good choice. Joseph, what's your big number one?
My number one is from House of Death, and I'm getting tired of picking this movie because I love it so much, but it seems like I've been picking it for like a lot of dumb reasons lately. But basically, this is the scene where the girl is out in the middle of the fair by herself, and she gets shot in the back with an arrow, and rather than run for help, she does take off running, but what does she run to? She runs to a carousel. Maybe not, she doesn't really seem to be looking for anyone, so she just gets on the carousel, and the carousel starts up, and she just sits there. You just got shot in the back with an arrow, so you're going to go run to a carousel, and you're going to sit there when it mysteriously powers up, even though you just got shot with an arrow, meaning someone might be trying to kill you. Okay. I think that's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in any movie. But yeah, I still love the movie so much, but it's just abysmally dumb. I mean, what was her thought process with this?
Well, she was wearing a bandana, wasn't she? I seem to remember. So she
that probably
cuts
off the circulation in her
brain,
head, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, that is delightfully stupid, isn't it? Because it just goes round and round and round, doesn't it? So it's not going to take her anywhere either.
She doesn't try to escape. She just sits there, like, just looking out, waiting to be suffocated.
Yeah.
it sort of reminds me of when Justin was talking about Jeannie and House on Sorority Row. I mean, both these characters had a chance of running where there were huge crowds of people, and instead they chose to run where there was no one to help them.
Oh, that's kind of why, like, you were talking about, I think, a few episodes ago about how you didn't like, Erik and I think saying about you preferred Halloween 5 to Halloween 4. But in Halloween 4, all the characters do what they should do, don't they? Which is kind of like call the sheriff and lock themselves in the house and all the things that they should do. But it doesn't necessarily make for a better slasher movie, does it? You have to have some of these dumb moves to give that extra frisson or whatever of fear, I can guess. And
good
it's always
point.
fun.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
But it's always fun to give people, watch stupid people die, I can guess. But anything else you want to say, Joseph, about your choice?
No, I mean, like I said, I love House of Death, and I'm sorry I keep picking it for all these dumb reasons, but that is a dumb moment, so there you go.
Yeah, well, no problem. Well, thank you, Joseph. And quickly, my number one is another film that I think we've spoken about before, and I might have even chosen this moment before, but it's Blood Tracks. The very similar, actually. It's actually a Hills of Eyes ripoff, I can guess.
With hair metal.
With hair metal, yes. Set in the Swedish mountains, I can guess, somewhere with a hair metal group and their groupies being attacked by mutants. And my favourite stupid scene in it is with one of the women, one of the band, the groupies, is being chased by the mutants. And to get away, I think it's her, or maybe it's one of the band members, gets on a snowmobile and tries to outrun them, and they're chasing them, and their snowmobile's going at about 2 miles an hour, and then they die. So that was that stupid moment for, surely they would have been better off, it's just been better off kind of, on a mobility scooter or something.
Hover around.
Or actually running might have been better. But that was my number one stupid moment. So I'd quite like to choose Blood Tracks at some point. I think that'd be quite a fun one to talk about.
It would.
Right. Well, I think it's probably time to get onto the main attraction, isn't it?
Okay, the Carter family are crossing the desert wastes of America, heading for California, when they are attacked by a group of savage cannibals. Mr. Carter is crucified, filled with petrol and set on fire. Mrs. Carter is shot in the stomach and left for dead. Her daughter is raped and her baby taken for the savage's food pot. And for the rest of the Carter family, it is now a battle of survival. With the aid of their Alsatian dogs, the Carter family start to turn the tables, and reverting to their own primitive instincts, they start to wipe out the cannibal punks. And that's the blurb from the back of the Hills of Eyes DVD I have here, the Region 2 release by Anchor Bay. Hills of Eyes is a film I saw probably first in the mid-'80s, and at that stage I'd read quite a lot about the film, reading that it was supposed to be really intense, frightening and quite grim. And when I finally saw the movie, I didn't find it as grueling as I thought it would be, but it's still not what I would call a, quote, fun movie. I mean, parts of it are quite strong, particularly the trailer invasion section, which is where Michael Berryman and one of the other savages invade the trailer, shoot the mother and Dee Wallace's character, and kidnap the baby. And that whole sequence is quite grueling. It reminds me a bit of sort of the intensity levels of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But overall, whilst I didn't find the film particularly grim apart from that sequence, I don't find it a fun watch, I'd say. It's not one that I'd go back to very often, but I do think it is one of Wes Craven's better movies. It has the kind of intensity of Last House on the Left, but fortunately he's omitted the stupid humour that I thought marred that film to a degree. But I remember being surprised when I saw it first at how little graphic violence there is in the film. A lot of it is implied. You don't see a lot of blood and gore. Again, that's probably something similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is probably the vibe I think that Wes Craven was going for here. What he does have going for him in this film is the terrific location. It's absolutely wonderful. But as I said, the film is not as rewatchable as some of his other works. It's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw movies or Last House on the Left. I'm not crazy about lunatic family type horror movies. I mean, I do like them, and I do like Hills of Eyes. But for me, it's strange to say. For me, the film's probably about 7 out of 10. But it's one I would only watch once every 10 years, maybe. So, Justin, what are your thoughts on the Hills of Eyes?
It's probably similar to you, actually. It's not a film that I return to very often. Although, as people have pointed out, although it's obviously ripping off Texas Chainsaw Massacre in quite a major way, it does predate, Halloween by a year. This idea of, suburbia being attacked, or finding themselves running afoul of kind of monsters or evil. Watching the DVD again, which is probably the same one you've got, which is the Anchor Bay one. It's incredibly grainy, isn't it? It's a very gritty film. The film literally is grainy. It's a very grainy film stock, and it's got that 70s look all over it, which is great, which I love. I think it kind of, in some ways, it's not nowhere near as silly as the remake. Not the remake, the sequel, obviously, which we'll talk about shortly. But it's still quite difficult to take that seriously, because when I was growing up, again, this was a film that was almost like a bit of a buzzword for scary movies. Just the name on its own, The Hills of Eyes, sounds really scary, doesn't it? And I remember as a kid actually overhearing people talking about the film. Must have when I was 9 or 10 years old, and overhearing them at a bus stop talking about the film and saying how scary it was, and thinking, my God, this must be the most terrifying film ever made. And of course, it's not. I mean, it's got its cheesy moments in it, like the mother. I think the mother of the cannibals, or the wife, who was supposedly, wasn't she some harlot that was stolen, and then she became this really dumpy kind of woman who looked like one of the Flintstones. And so it's kind of so that was kind of, it's slightly cheesy, you know, and it kind of took away. And I do love. My favourite moment of the film actually is when the I can't remember the name now, but the daughter who is somehow managed to retain humanity, where all the other cannibals are kind of really awful, and somehow you got this. What's her name? She's in the sequel. Ruby. That's it. She's retains her humanity, or she's just like a valley girl or somebody who will just. Really hates what her family's doing, even though presumably she's brought up with this all her life. And when she steals the baby to take it away from the family, stop them killing the baby and eating it. I love it when she's running with the baby, because it's obviously so clearly not a real baby, because its legs are flapping up and down like a rag doll. It always makes me laugh, and they love that so much. They show that clip again, like many of the flashbacks in the sequel, but. And the last thing that made me laugh this time actually was I was just watching a cat going across my DVD collection. It's right on top. So if you hear a huge smash, that is my whole DVD collection collapsing. But I will go on like the pro that I am. But the other thing was one of the mutants had teeth like Dick Emery's vicar. And it probably won't mean much to the American listeners, but Dick Emery was a 70s comedian, and he had a vicar who had like really big teeth. And I couldn't watch this film without thinking of his Dick Emery's vicar. So anyway, that's my little view at the moment on. Oh God! Oh, sorry.
There goes the DVDs.
No, it's actually my Horror of the Zombies poster. I will pass this over and I'm just going to go and while you carry on, I was going to go and extract the cat from my. He's just about to knock over my Halloween thing too now. So I'll just pass you over.
Okay, Joseph. While Justin is sorting out Renegade Cats, can you give us your thoughts on Hills of Eyes?
Yeah, I'll always have a soft spot for Hills Have Eyes because I've probably mentioned this before, but it's the movie that really got me into slasher films. It's actually the first one I ever saw, so I'll always have a soft spot for it. But I think I echo your sentiments well. I think a lot of it is well filmed and has great atmosphere, and I like the idea of this, family going out into the desert, and then there's all these kind of like messed up mutants that live in the hills and in the mountains and in the behind the sand dunes and things like that nature, just coming out terrorizing them. I think a lot of the movie kind of takes a little while for it to really get going. It's not one you'd want to go back and rewatch over and over. I mean, like I said, I always have a soft spot for it, but at the same time, it's a movie that I probably only watch like once every 10 years. And I think, like you said, it does, borrow a lot from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I ultimately think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a much better film. It's, a lot scarier. I think there are moments in The Hills Have Eyes where it gets a little cheesy, and that's a good thing, I guess. But at the same time, I kind of echo what Justin said, that title, that's a title, you go through in video stores in the early 80s and you're like, ooh, The Hills Have Eyes. That has to be scary. And then when it's really not, you're just kind of disappointed. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, you've both covered what I really wanted to say. So that's the
tagline is kind of iconic as well. The lucky ones died first, which kind of...
I love that tagline. Yeah. Another thing, I don't really find what's his name, Michael Berryman, to be very scary. I always thought he was kind of just silly looking. I mean, no offense to Michael Berryman. I think he's supposed to be a scary villain in this, but at the same time, I just kind of chuckle when I see him because he has that almost, again, this could be libel. So sorry, Michael. He has that almost kind of cartoonish appearance to him, so he's not really scary to me. So
I don't know if it's his appearance. I think the performance is kind of pantomime-y, cartoony. I think
it is. But overall, I really do love the film. But at the same time, it's not one I probably won't watch it again for another 10 years. I try to watch it, at least once every decade. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, Nathan, how much do you love The Hills of Eyes? Because we know you probably love it. Much. Yes, I thought so.
Yes, I do. like Joseph said, it is not as good as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but nothing is. I pretty much agree with what you guys have already said. I think the scene where they attack, and the mothers are killed. I think that was a really it was a very tense scene. I thought it was very well done. But it's almost like it just explodes with all that intensity, and then it just kind of drags for a little bit until just it kind of drags for a little while after that for me. But I mean, I still really enjoyed it regardless, and I may be causing some controversy here, but I kind of think I like part 2 a little better. It's got more, I don't know, I find part 2 extremely entertaining, I guess.
Okay, well, we'll probably get onto that shortly. Do any of us think The Hills of Eyes is a bona fide slasher movie? Because I don't. To me, it doesn't feel like a slasher movie at all.
It doesn't feel like one to me.
I'd say it is. I'd say
Justin? It's got elements in the same way, because it's not like the sequel's obviously ripping off Friday the 13th in quite a major way, whereas obviously Friday the 13th and Halloween hadn't come out by the time The Hills of Eyes had come out, so it's kind of got that kind of proto-slasher leanings in so much. It's got lots of elements which kind of are slasherific, but without the whole template that would soon be set in the next year with Halloween. But yes, it's kind of more. I kind of guess it's looking more back to something like obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then Deliverance and all those kind of movies, isn't it? It's and also films like kind of almost like Grizzly and those kind of the American family out on a camping trip that are attacked by whether it be giant ants or giant grizzly bears or kind of psychotic
I love Empire of the
cannibals.
Ants.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that movie too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of got that more.
Fantastic.
And I think it's. I don't know whether or not Wes Craven with it, because obviously Last House on the Left was not unremittingly nasty, but it was some bits of it were really, really nasty. Whereas I don't really feel that The Hills of Eyes ever quite goes that. It never quite gets that intensity to the violence or the nastiness that the Last House on the Left does do. Really,
but then it doesn't go down the route of slapstick comedy either.
No.
Which I never understood those elements of Last House on the Left.
Yeah, but yeah, I think definitely a sequel, which we'll talk about shortly, is definitely far more, of a slasher movie, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so yeah, we're probably just going to speed through Hills of Eyes because it only has very tenuous links to the slasher genre. And will we move on to Hills of Eyes 2, or does anyone want to say anything else about Hills of Eyes?
Well, the only thing I was going to say was just a little bit of background. I'm not going to go into major background. But interestingly, I think the film, probably The Hills of Ice, had a better reputation at the time, possibly, than it does now. For whatever reason, I don't know, because you don't really hear about The Hills of Ice talked about in the same way as say Texas Chainsaw Massacre. To my mind, it's not regarded as so much as a classic. There probably are people out there who are real big fans of it, but it's not a film that I hear championed that much anymore. I'm sure it is in certain circles, but I just dug out this bit of information which I thought was interesting. At the time, in 1977, the same year, presumably the film was released, it was actually accepted by for the film collection by New York Museum of Modern Art as a terror classic. So for the film, the same year it was released, it was released 77, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that same release, a year it was released, it was actually accepted into quite a prestigious, collection that year, which I thought was interesting. But that's
it was released. It was released a week before. He says this on the audio commentary. It was released a week before Smoking the Bandit, and it looked like it was that Hills of Ice was doing quite well, but then Smoking the Bandit came along and sort of blew them out of the water. Right. And, yeah.
Because I've got the Anchor Bay DVD, but I bought it because I didn't actually own it. But all that was left was like the bare bones release, which didn't have the commentary, I don't think, on it.
All right, because this is the one I have is a double disc, and it has a featurette which goes on for about 40 minutes actually, and there's a documentary on the second disc called The American Nightmare.
Okay,
which is sort of a general thing about early 70s horror movies or mid 70s. But yeah, it's a good release.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have to pick that up at some point, but like everyone else is saying, it's a film I probably will come back to, once a decade.
Yeah.
So,
of course, it's an early role for Dee Wallace. I suppose she's the most high-profile actress in the film. I'm just looking on IMDb to see at what stage in her career she was, because this was the same year she did Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, really? Okay.
Was she in that? She was, wasn't she?
I can't remember, actually.
No, she wasn't. It's E.T. I'm thinking of, sorry. Okay. Yeah, she'd done a few TV appearances, but this was her first major role in 1977. Okay. Oh, the same year she played a hot dog stand owner in Man from Atlantis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really ramping up the credits there.
Yeah.
Just a quick little story about The Hills Have Eyes. When I was like 14 or 15 in school, I knew this kid who said that when he was a kid, he wanted his mom to rent him a horror film, but he couldn't remember the name of it. And he said, I saw it at the video store. It has a guy overlooking a hill and something to do with hills or something. So she goes to the video store and she gets The Hills Have Eyes and she brings it back. And he watches it and he's like, this is not the movie I wanted. And he had a conniption fit. And he's like 6 or 7 years old. And he ended up screaming at his mom. And she's like, well, that's the movie that was there. And so it turns out like he never did find out what movie it was until later in life. And it turns out he actually wanted The Town That Dreaded Sundown, because they both have that similar box with the killer overlooking the hills. And they have that kind of similar vibe going about. And I just thought that was kind of interesting when he told me that.
It's bizarre, isn't it? But you would think a 6 or 7 year old would probably enjoy The Hills Have Eyes more than The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah,
I think so.
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
You're hardly 6 or 7 though.
Sorry?
Yeah, he'd saw the film. I think he'd saw like bits and pieces of it on TV, and he's like, "Rent this movie. I saw it at the video store. I know it's there." And it was, he wanted The Town That Dreaded Sundown, but he got The Hills Have Eyes.
Okay. Yes.
Another little bit of trivia. According to the IMDb, now this isn't mentioned on the commentary as far as I can remember, but many of the props in the Farrell family's cave were from Robert A. Burns' previous project, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's what it says. Do we believe it? I don't know. And apparently the dead dog, when Beauty is killed earlier on in the film, apparently that is a real dog that they bought from the county sheriff's department. So Justin, I'm sorry.
What, they killed the dog?
No, I think it was probably roadkill or something.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or maybe it was just a dog that had died. I doubt they would have killed a dog.
I'm pretty sure at the end of the film it says no animals were harmed.
Yeah.
It certainly does at the end of the sequel. But, okay.
Yeah.
Right, well, anything else to say about the first one before we move on to the main feature?
Totes.
Okay.
Okay, there's quite a funny blurb at the back of the video. It says, award-winning writer-director Wes Craven, the John Ford of horror, repeats the success of The Hills of Eyes with this gripping follow-up. Ignoring the warnings of a survivor of the earlier gruesome ordeal, a group of youngsters set out to take the desert road again. When their bus runs short of petrol and they are stranded in the middle of nowhere, the crazed mutants reappear, their bloodlust unabated. In the lethal duel that ensues, the lucky ones die first, until finally, an injured man and a blind girl are left to face the terrible Reaper alone. Just to elaborate on that plot a little, Bobby, who is the survivor of the first film, played by Robert Houston, he appears again in the opening of the film. He's in therapy, but he's also part of this motorcycle team, and he's invented this new type of super fuel that gives the motorbikes a turbo boost, and he's hoping to sell it to a major sort of oil company at the next bike meet. However, they have to travel across the desert to get there, and he chickens out at the last minute. In a rather unbelievable plot twist, Ruby, who was one of the cannibal clan that Justin was talking about in the previous one, who looked more like a valley girl, she has joined civilization now, and it's kind of vague, but it seems to be that she's the girlfriend of Bobby. Anyway, she travels on the bus sort of in Bobby's place to guide them across the desert. And in an even more silly, bizarre twist, again, this would probably fit into our top 3 dumbass moves. I think there's 8 people on the bus, and nobody remembered that daylight savings time had started the previous night. So they forgot to put their clocks forward, and now they're running late for the motorcycle meet. So they have to take a shortcut through, of course, the same area that the first film took place in. I've never really understood the overwhelmingly negative reaction to this film. I mean, I can understand mainstream critics not liking it, but I can't understand how a Friday the 13th enthusiast would slag off this film. I mean, it has absolutely none of the intensity of the original film, but it has twice as much fun. You can tell it was made sort of in the wake of the slasher boom. I mean, it sweats Friday the 13th from every pore. And this is probably why I wanted to focus more on part 2 than part 1. The original was almost like a kind of a siege movie or a sort of Texas Chainsaw movie, which you could, as we said, you could shoehorn it into the slasher umbrella at a push. But part 2 is a bona fide slasher movie through and through. I mean, there's a few reasons probably why. Firstly, the victims in the film, they're all sort of teenagers. They all get picked off one by one, often in slightly more gory ways than in the original. The score in particular, which is done by Harry Manfredini, you heard a bit of it there in the trailer. I mean, I don't want to accuse him of being a one-trick pony, because I think his music is excellent, but this sounds almost indistinguishable from his work on the Friday the 13th films, particularly parts 4 and 5. If you've heard his score for House, the Steve Miner film from 1986 as well, you'll know that also sounds incredibly similar. It's not a complaint by any means. I mean, it just helps make Hills 2 even more enjoyable by making it more like a Friday the 13th sequel. Again, the location is superb. The daylight shots of the landscape are gorgeous, and there's an eerie isolation to them as well. And one of the great joys about Hills of Ice Part 2 is that it's just so unashamedly dumb. People go on about the dog having a flashback in the movie as if it's a bad thing, but to me, that's just part of the fun of the film. And I mean, in any film with Michael Berryman on a dirt bike, has to be worth at least one watch. I mean, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel with the film, and they're just merely trying to create an effective and fun slasher movie. And I don't care if Wes Craven has disowned it, because to me, he succeeded in making an entertaining film. And I was looking through his list on IMDb, and I can think of at least 7 or 8 films in his filmography that I think are worse than Hills of Ice Part 2. I'm thinking things like Shocker, My Soul to Take, Deadly Friend, I think is worse. Swamp Thing is worse. I don't think he has any reason to be ashamed of Hills of Ice Part 2, in my opinion. I think it's, for me, as a slasher fan, it stands up to repeated viewing because it's just silly and it's short and it does exactly what you want a slasher film to do. Nathan, Hills of Ice Part 2, I know you said you preferred it to Part 1, so I can predict what you're going to say.
I love it. Is that what you predicted?
That is what I predicted, but I was predicting maybe a bit more than I love it.
Oh, okay, yes. I love the movie very, very, very much. I think I like it a little better than Part 1 because I find it maybe more entertaining. It's definitely more of a slasher film, and slashers are my favorites. I like, I love, like you said, I love how outlandish the whole thing is. I mean, the whole thing is just unbelievably silly, but that just makes it a lot of fun, and I kind of like, Ruby going back and, encountering her old family, Reaper, and I always forget what Michael Berryman's character is called. Is it Jupiter?
Pluto.
Okay, Pluto, yeah. So I like her going back and encountering them, and I love the fact that Pluto is terrified of a beast, the dog. Like, he is unbelievably scared of this dog, I guess I could see why, though. It's not unbelievable. It's my favorite formula, group of teenagers in a secluded place, getting picked off one by one. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
I love the plot twist where they earn a bit of cash for their trip by having Beast impregnate lots of female dogs at some kind of dog ranch. I mean, yeah. I don't even
Can I just say, Bobby was, I'm sure he was very ecstatic later on when he found out he didn't go.
I'm sure he was. He's like, yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but we do never find out what happens to his girlfriend, Ruby, the ex-Savage. Like, the last we see of her, she falls over and hits her head in a rock, and then we don't see her again.
There is a reason for that, though, isn't there? There's a reason that we don't, but we'll...
Okay, will we go into that in the behind-the-scenes then afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. Joseph, Hills of Ice Part 2.
Yeah. I like it a lot, too. I I'll probably be the outcast here and say I probably like the first one for a little more, just for reasons of nostalgia. But I think this is a more entertaining film. I think this is the movie Jeepers Creepers 2 wanted to be, with a bunch of people on a bus getting picked off. And I like that, they pulled this bus into the desert, and they get off the bus, but at points in the film, they still manage to utilize the bus for different, scenarios. There's like one
Sex.
where sex, and the guy getting pulled under the bus. I like that they utilize the bus. I think there should be more slasher films, that use a bus. I think that's such a neat setting. But I think they did fairly well here. Yeah, like you've both said, it's wildly entertaining. If it's extremely dumb. I mean, you get the dog flashback. You got a lot of kind of just silly conversations going on before the thing, and of course you got Michael Berryman, amping up his role as the kind of buffoon mutant here. And I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, you've both covered everything I wanted to say about it. The one thing I always wonder about in movies like these, when they have this mine shaft here, it says danger, mine shaft. Why do they always end up like messing around in that thing? I mean, they always have signs say danger, do not enter mine shaft, and yet someone ends up going in it or doing something around it. It's like another one of those dumb moments. You're like, don't do that. It has a sign. It says, don't go in the mine shaft.
Oh, Joseph, never underestimate the human intrigue when it comes to a long shaft.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I would be the one who would.
It's almost...
Matron, please. I'm not that kind of doctor.
But it's the whole, it's forbidden. So, I mean, it's intriguing even more. It's like the episode of The Simpsons, Joseph, where... Ralph goes into his dad's closet, and his dad goes, "Son, what is it with you and your fascination with my forbidden closet of mysteries?"
Now that I think about it, I think I was mentioning the kind of comparisons between this and Jeepers Creepers 2. I think both Jeepers Creepers films owe a little bit to this movie, because in the first Jeepers Creepers film, they see the creeper dumping this body down this long kind of tunnel thing. And the characters kind of, go exploring that, and then they do that in this movie, and then in the second film they're on a bus, and then they're on a bus in this movie. So now I'm thinking, was the creative force behind the Jeepers Creepers films inspired by The Hills Have Eyes Part 2?
I wonder if anyone was inspired by Hills Have Eyes Part 2.
I'm inspired enough to do a podcast on it.
Yeah, me too. Well, God, I'm just it's on here in the background, and
I just finished watching it in the background.
What's the character's name? The black guy with the baseball cap. God, his trousers are up so high.
I don't remember, but I like the scene where he gets punched out by the girl.
That's it. Yeah.
I like the scene where he gets punched out by the girl, and he's just kind of like, "What?" But yeah, I like it a lot. I don't know if I could go back and watch it, over and over, like some movies of this ilk, like say Friday the 13th Part 5. That's a movie I could watch over and over again. But The Hills Have Eyes 2, it's similar in tone, but at the same time, it's missing a little something that would make me want to watch it over and over. But overall, yeah, a recommendation from me.
I would love to see the alternate cut of Hills Have Eyes Part 2 with a Jason-type killer instead of the cannibals. I think it would work really well.
Yeah, because I think that's another problem I have with The Hills Have Eyes 2 is Michael Berryman again. I mean, I like the guy, don't get me wrong, but when they start talking, I kind of lose interest. I like the more silent, shadowy murderers.
So do I, and I think that they're too comical as well, the two cannibals in this one. Yeah, interesting. You were talking about school buses. Another great slasher that involves a school bus is, of course, The Wonderful Freddy's Revenge, which utilizes a school bus, only in a small way, but...
Don't they use a school bus in Killer's Moon? I can't remember.
Yes, they do. To start off with, they take all the schoolgirls in a bus.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a scene in the bus in Slaughterhouse. I don't know if it's a school bus.
Yeah, that's right. When he's chasing, he's whooshing that axe at the girl in the bus. Yeah. See, I think that someone really needs to make a movie set on a bus where they're actually trapped and they're getting picked off, by someone in the bus. Not like Jeepers Creepers 2 where, someone will go outside and then the guy just flies away with them.
Well,
I want
there to be
actual... I want there to be actual...
It'd have to be.
There's got to be a way to do it. I mean, there's got to be a way.
How's the killer going to kill somebody on a bus with nobody else knowing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that, but there's got to be a way to do this where it's just nonstop suspense, and it's mostly, at least 85% set on the bus. I think there's kind of a potential there. I wish someone would really utilize that because I think it's a neat idea.
But would it just be the killer hiding in the toilet? And that would be.
It could be. Maybe he kills. Maybe he's just strangling people and making them look like they're asleep or something, so people don't suspect that there's something going on.
Why don't you write this? I'm very curious.
I like the idea of just people using the bus to keep the killer out, and somehow or another he ends up getting people out of the bus. At one point or another. I don't know. I like the idea of this, but it just has not been utilized full effect yet.
What about
There's a great scene in The Final Terror with the killer
Final Terror.
attacking them.
Yeah, because that's got the bus, isn't it?
Definitely. The school bus attack.
Okay, Justin, what are your bus-based thoughts on Hills of Ice Part 2?
Well, it's funny enough. I was rewatched yet again Final Destination 5 last night, and that's got a bus scene in it.
Oh yeah, of course, on the bridge.
And Severance is another bus.
You watched it again?
What? Final Destination 5?
Final Destination 5?
Yeah. Well, we had some friends around last night, and they chose it. So.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I really Hills of Ice Part 2 wasn't as bad as I remember it being. I was surprised actually that it was actually very, very entertaining. It's not a good movie by any stretch, but it's an entertaining one, and I think I agree with Erik. Wes Craven has done a lot worse than this film, and so I'm surprised actually. I think people haven't gone back and given it another chance, and I think if you watch it alongside the Friday the 13th sequel, which, let's face it, are not exactly critics' choices themselves, it's a lot of fun, and there are problems with the film. Don't get me wrong, but there are a couple of bits I thought that were quite funny. Well, you've already mentioned lots of them, but one of the things I could never really understand is if they knew they were being picked off one by one and things were happening, why didn't one of them get on a bike and ride back to get help? Did anyone know why that didn't happen?
No, it didn't happen. And again, you'd wonder why.
You would have thought that would have been obvious, but then again, the film would have been over pretty quickly. I liked the welcome sign when they went into the desert, and it was welcome spelt CUM, which I thought was it was kind of a nice little touch.
Of course you did.
Also, I thought the Reaper, which was kind of like this kind of the idea, the Reaper is this kind of really scary character who, I mean, where does he come from? Did they have like this extended family in the desert? Because he's not mentioned in the first film, is he?
He drove in from Oxnard. He's like, I'm in for the weekend.
But he looked like a
Papa Jupe's brother, is it, or father?
Yeah, but if he was,
it was his brother or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
But in the first film, why didn't? Because the idea, wasn't it, which is a bit ridiculous anyway, was this kind of this wayward son that the gas stop owner had thrown out, and then he'd run off into the wilderness. But he didn't mention another son that he'd also thrown out. So that was all a bit silly. But he again, I couldn't help but think he looked like a kind of slightly demented Demis Roussos. And he just needed a caftan to be sort of running around killing the kids. But I did love the Cass character, who was the blind psychic, which I thought was kind of, this kind of saintly blind teenage girl who is so kind of, she's just always smiling with this beatific smile, and she's got the hunky boyfriend, and she's kind of everything. The only thing that's wrong with her is she's blind, but that doesn't matter because she can smell people's fear, and she can, she knows when things are going bad, and it's just less endless. It's kind of like it's cross between Helen Keller and Jan Brady, wasn't she? I mean,
totally. Yeah.
She was just kind of like this hilarious character that, cause especially at the fiery end, which we'll talk, the fiery ring. And she managed to, still get out of that, run through this fiery ring, even though she's blind. Whereas in real life, she probably would have run straight into the ring, wouldn't she? And gone up like a Belisha beacon. But yeah, no, it's an entertaining movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not without its faults. And I do wonder, we'll come on to a little bit about the background. I do wonder if Wes Craven actually got the final cut on it, which he didn't, whether or not he I mean, there's still all the elements are there, isn't it? Teenagers being stalked by comical comic book nasties. It's kind of like it's never going to be like a kind of a first-rate chiller in a kind of like highfalutin thing way, is it? It was always, I kind of guess it was always meant to be slightly tongue-in-cheek the whole way through. And interestingly, one of the things I read was that the whole dog flashback, which I think is the film, that's always the one thing that people always talk about when they talk about The Hills of Ice Part 2 as a negative, is the dog flashback, as in that is just kind of the real, nadir of the kind of the genre that you would have that. It just, but so one thing I saw someone said, which I thought was quite funny, was that Wes Craven actually did that as like a joke because he realised he was making a piece of crud. I don't mean that in a horrible way. I mean, it's a very enjoyable piece of crud, but it's not a good movie, But Wes Craven, I think, was well aware that he wasn't exactly making Casablanca or Deliverance or something. He was making a quite trashy sequel, which I don't think he particularly wanted to make in the first place. So, but all that considering all of that, I still think The Hills of Ice Part 2 is very entertaining, and I like the characters. What I like about this film especially is all of the characters are fun. There's some of them a little bit annoying, but they're all kind of like full of the joys of youth. They're all kind of like, a bit bouncy and out to have a good time, and they're a bit sort of jolly holly sticks almost, that kind of like, hey, yeah, come on, let's do all this, let's have fun and stuff. And like Kevin Blair or Kevin Spiritus or however he was in this film, I think is a very likeable lead. So it's a thumbs up from me. It's not a good movie by any stretch, but it certainly is an entertaining one. And that's when it comes to enjoying bad movies, then I love a bad movie, and this is a bad movie, and I very much enjoy it.
I spotted that with Cass, that she was painted as it was almost PC gone, to another level by having her be the saintly, heroic figure just because she's blind. And I love the fact that everyone sort of pussyfoots around the fact that she's blind, and they keep making mistakes. Like Ruby at one stage offers her a cigarette by just holding the cigarette pack up to her face, and then she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were," and Cass jumps in and goes, "A non-smoker," and scenes like that where people keep forgetting that she's blind. It's like a after school special almost. Those elements of the film. Were you disappointed? Like Kevin Blair is set up as this lead, and then he disappears for it must be about half an hour. He disappears for in the film because he gets caught in a trap set by the. That sounds like a song, actually. He gets caught in a trap, and he's gone out of the film then for about 40 minutes, and then sort of wakes up from his concussion to appear in the end.
Well,
which again, this is the signs of a troubled production, possibly, or an unfinished script.
I know, because for half the movie, all you get to see is Roy's helmet.
I didn't hear you complaining. Yeah, I like the way Cass puts a kind of a sticky label on his helmet.
Yes.
Yeah. This is one of those movies. The Hills Have Eyes 2 is one of those movies that kind of capitalizes on something that's popular at the time. In this case, it was dirt bikes. Mm-hmm. I know they'd previously done that in Scream, aka The Outing. Those two people show up on the dirt bikes, but I think this one kind of used that fad a little more.
It did, yeah. Although
to its advantage.
Did they use that in the publicity material? The dirt biking. I haven't got the sleeve in front of me, but
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, the sleeve, the artwork for the film is great, isn't it? I mean, it actually makes Jupiter or whatever his name is, they look really quite scary, but he's not, is he?
Pluto.
Reaper, sorry.
Oh, the Reaper, yeah. Mm. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it here.
Oh, the Reaper, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got like peg-like teeth, isn't he?
He reminds me a bit of, is it Sloth from The Goonies? In the artwork here. He has a kind of sort of pantomime grimace even.
Sloth, love junk.
Yeah. Yeah, that ending you were talking about, Justin, where they set this sort of, laborious trap up for the Reaper by creating a ring of fire, and then Cass has to jump through it, and it's like Mousetrap. She has to push a rock down a well that will drag Kevin Spiritus out of the ring of fire. Oh, it's just ridiculous.
I know. It could have gone wrong in so many different ways, couldn't it?
I know. And why does he need to be dragged? Why doesn't he just jump through the fire rather than hang onto a piece of rope that's...
I think possibly because the bus is about to explode, isn't it? Is that why?
But he would have been like he's dragged at kind of a pace that would be slightly less than running pace. So I don't know.
I know. Yeah, it was very convoluted, wasn't it? But it was.
It was. Yeah. As I said, it reminded me of Mousetrap.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a very good comparison.
Justin, this might be a good time to play. I was mentioning the Harry Manfredini score. So here's just a reminder of what that score sounds like. And I mean, close your eyes and you're in a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah. It's uncanny, isn't it?
It is. I mean, as good as composer as he is, he does seem to only have one sort of a trick up his sleeve.
It kind of reminds me of that in Little Britain, that kind of the comedy TV series when they did Barbara Cartland, which is a kind of
oh yes,
you know, when she's a kind of, if you don't know who she is, she was kind of like a famous kind of romance. She wrote romance books, but they're all exactly the same basically, and they took the piss out of it. But they were saying she was sitting there eating chocolates. One of the characters dressed up as her, and they were saying. She's saying, how many words have I got to do left? And she said, oh, you've got about 20,000. And she sort of says, oh, well, so, you know, Valerie got in the sled and went down the hill going, wee. And then she goes, how many words left have I got now? She goes, 19,000, sort of 7, you know, and then she goes, wee, sort of like, anyway, just kind of. So it's a bit like that with this. It was just recycling. He'd obviously recycled, but it's obviously such a fantastic tune. And to be honest, I imagine what people went to him and said, look, we love your score for Friday the 13th. Can you write us one exactly like that, please?
Probably.
And I'm sure he probably just went and sort of swapped over a couple of notes or something, or changed the tone. And they went, $10,000, please, I imagine. Or maybe, are we going to get sued by Harry Manfredini?
Oh, I don't know.
Allegedly. It was all allegedly, wasn't it, Eric?
It was, allegedly, apparently.
Yes.
And stuff. Yeah. There's also a great scene in it where Harry, who's kind of the jokey character, did anyone else notice that he gets crushed by a giant falling Weetabix?
It's really rubbish, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. It's not quite as bad as the rubbish boulder in Bloody Moon, but it is fairly rubbish. Yeah.
It's a bit like, I think we talked about when we did Bloody Moon, when the Medusa Touch, the Richard Burton film, where at the end the cathedral collapses and a massive boulder or a bit of stone falls out and lands on someone's head and bounces off, which always made me laugh. But anyway, yes.
Okay, did you know the original script was written by Kenneth Williams?
So I hear.
Have a listen to this clip and you'll see why.
All right, help me push this thing, Cass. Come on. Come on. Keep your finger over the hole next time, huh?
Oh, yay!
Oh, man. Primo entrance.
Right into Reaper's special mine shaft.
Nothing like having an ace in the hole, right?
Right. Just get it out. You can't sit on this for the rest of your life.
Sounds a bit rude.
Yeah, so originally it was a porn movie.
It was.
Yeah.
Matron, please, I'm not that kind of doctor.
Kenneth would have been proud.
He would have been, yes.
I bet you had a lot of fun putting that together, didn't you, Eric?
I did, yeah. I was giggling because I do the kind of audio editing stuff at work. I was kind of like giggling to myself at the desk and nobody knew why. Yeah. Okay, background information. Nathan, you have a few bits and pieces, I believe.
Well, let's see. What do I have here? Well, the one I had, I think, is what Justin has it as well, is about Ruby. Because I watched Invasion of the Scream Queens, which was a documentary made in 1992, and they interviewed Janice Blythe, who played Ruby, and, you know, she admitted that in the original script, you know, Ruby is supposed to have died. You know, they were supposed to have killed her off, but I think she had a lot of talks with Wes Craven, and, you know, she said that every day on the set, she asked him if he had, you know, rewritten it, you know, basically to where Ruby had lived, and eventually they just ran out of time, so I guess they decided to just make her fate ambiguous.
She's, of course, Janice Blythe was also in Eaten Alive, the Tobe Hooper movie, which has other names I know.
And she was in Spine.
Oh, that god awful.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. Sorry, her? Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay. I mean,
thank you.
Do you have anything else, Nathan?
Let's see. Oh, and The character of Ruby is the inspiration for a series of short stories called the Tombstone Mountain series that was written by Nathan Johnson.
I was thinking that was heading in that direction.
Yes, I write a series of stories about a group of sorority sisters having their initiation on Tombstone Mountain, and one of the sorority girls is named Ruby, and she and like there's usually a massacre, and then about a week later, a new group of girls show up, and they take them to Tombstone Mountain for initiation, and there's another massacre, and it's a continuation because the girls that survive are too stupid to realize that if they go back, the killer's still there.
That sounds good. Would you better get Hazel Tankersley to play one of the sorority sisters when you shoot it?
Oh, yes. Her. Yeah, she'll be one of the sorority sisters.
Yeah. From the best-selling novel. Yeah. Were these written in the same era as the Massacre movies?
Actually, yeah, they were written when I was in high school. So, and I still write them. I torture Wes with them all the time. Like, I'm like, hey, Wes, I got a new Tombstone Mountain story for you to read. And he's like, oh, God. Because he hates the characters because he thinks they're all stupid because they keep going back to Tombstone Mountain.
The clue is in the name, really.
Yes.
Tombstone Mountain sounds like somewhere that Justin would like to go.
The house mother, Mrs. Bunlier,
What's her name?
Mrs. Bunlier.
Oh, I think it said Bumwire.
No.
It's like a G string.
Bunlier. Like a hamburger bun and a liar. Bunlier.
Okay.
She, at one point, decides that they're just going to move the sorority to Tombstone Mountain. And then, of course, there's a massacre, so they move back to Sorority Row again.
It sounds like a classic in the making.
It does.
I know. I wish I could, actually make them.
Well, that's your homework.
Are the novels what you might call unfilmable? No.
Yeah, they're pretty outlandish. I mean, the killer Brutus, he just shows up and I think in one scene he grabs one of the sorority girls and just tears her in half with his bare hands. But then there's another girl who got scraped on the leg with a tin can lid and she died of tetanus.
That's something you don't see every day in slasher movies.
No, you don't.
I try to make mine believable. Oh, and another something that happens in every story is there's always weapons that are convenient. Like in one scene, a girl's hiding in a hospital room because they're at the Tombstone Mountain Memorial Hospital, and she's hiding in a hospital room, and there's a mace hanging on the wall. So she grabs it and starts swinging it at the killer.
So, was that inspired by Slaughter Hotel?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of inspiration from other movies in the Tombstone Mountain series. I'm going to start a blog and put them all on there.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of fun writing the
4 pages each.
I had a lot of fun writing the gory graduation stories.
Oh yes,
that was. I liked that when you wrote that. It was a nice little joke.
Yes,
because you actually convinced me for a minute that it really was a real novelization.
Oh really? No, that's good. I might do another little chapter at some point. I've got an idea for one, but well, excited. See, these are the hidden talents behind the Hysteria Continues. Or something.
Yes. Joseph, you got any behind the scenes for us on Hills of Ice 2? Or do you have any hidden talents you want to divulge?
Well,
can you tell us how the French eat a frog?
I thought the French were frogs.
No, the cast tells a kind of pretty unfunny joke in Hills of Ice 2 about how do the French eat frog.
I don't remember that.
All right. You know the punchline, Justin. No?
No, I can't remember, actually.
She just says they take one little leg and put it over one ear, and they take the other little leg and put it over the other ear, and then everyone laughs. And I'm like, that wasn't even funny. I think it's supposed to be kind of performing cunnilingus on a frog is kind of the joke.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Joseph. Cass says thank you very much for the laughter. Yeah.
So, Joseph.
Sorry, you have background, do you?
I'll keep my hidden talents behind the shorts I'm wearing. But anyway, I have a little bit. It says the budget was estimated $700,000, and they filmed between March 1984 and May of 1984. That's according to the Internet Movie Database. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. But Wes Craven claims he did the film because he was in need of money, and since then has disowned it. He thought John Bloom's voice wasn't strong enough for his role as the Reaper, so he had Nicholas Worth loop all of Bloom's lines in post-production. And earlier in the show, I'd made a joke about our Savage Water commentary having a 97% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But it turns out The Hills Have Eyes has a 0% rating, has no fresh reviews, all rotten. And then from this movie info from Robert Fershing, you'll probably disagree with this. He says, this atrocious sequel to the 1977 horror classic is padded with so much of that film's footage that it seems more like a rerun than a new story. The entire cast seems to have lengthy flashbacks of the previous movie's events, including, in what must be a cinematic first, the German Shepherd dog. The remaining screen time is spent on an uninvolving battle between some bland motocross bikers and the cannibal hill folk. To be fair, director Wes Craven has stated that the film was extensively tampered with prior to release. That may get Craven off the hook, but doesn't make this muddled mess any easier to watch.
Oh. Yes, I like it then.
No,
yeah, I was wondering about that March to May 1984 filming dates, because I'd always heard, and I can't find any references to this, but that was filmed in 1983.
It was filmed in 1983.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, as far as I can... looking at Variety, they say that it was filmed in the fall of 1983. So
I always got the impression it was made before A Nightmare on Elm Street. And that would make sense.
All the research I found, it was because the Variety archives say that it was. It talks about on May the 17th, 1984. It talks about the sequel, and it said the film was shot last fall.
Well, that would make financial sense in correlation to what Wes Craven said about needing money, because if they filmed this before A Nightmare on Elm Street, he probably would have needed money by that point. When he filmed Nightmare on Elm Street, it was such a success. I'd imagine he wouldn't need money after that if this was filmed after Nightmare on Elm Street. So Justin's probably right.
Well, I've got a feeling that because Wes Craven famously couldn't get anyone to film A Nightmare on Elm Street, could he? So I don't know for sure what the timeline was, but I imagine Nightmare on Elm Street was always his kind of cash-in, wasn't it? The idea of wanting to get a slice of the pie of the slasher movie, sort of boom. And by 1984, it was more or less over, wasn't it, as we know? And so obviously the rest is history. But I imagine that he took Hills of Ice Part 2 much against his will. He really didn't want to do it, but probably as a way either to make money, possibly to finance, or at least as a stopgap before he could get someone to make A Nightmare on Elm Street. But sorry, Joseph, have you got any more?
No, that's all I have on the film.
Okay, Justin? My list of behind the scenes is dwindling ever more as people talk, but...
Well, do you want to go first? Or?
Okay, well, I'll just say that I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, that the actor Bobby Houston, who was the lead in the first one, has a cameo in the second one. He went on to cut together Shogun Assassin from two of the Lone Wolf and Cub movies. Is that what they're called? So he's credited as the director, although the footage already existed. He just spliced it together to make the 80-minute movie. He also went on to win an Academy Award for a documentary he made in 2004. So he's had quite a successful career. As Joseph said, Wes Craven did it for the money. He's quoted in a book that I haven't written down what the title of the book is. It's a book about Wes Craven's movies, but he says, I needed to do any film, I would have done Godzilla Goes to Paris, which would still probably be better than My Soul to Take, I think. It was released, it debuted at the Sitges Film Festival in October 84, and then debuted in the UK before the US on video. I don't know if it got a theatrical release, but it seems to have been released to video in January 85, and then in the US, August of that year, it was released. There's a slightly different budget in one of the books I could find. It said it was possibly a budget of 1 million, which is slightly more than the 700,000 it says on IMDb, and it was shot over a period of 24 days. The stuntman on the film was Kane Hodder, who of course would soon go on to big success as Jason in 4 of the Friday the 13th sequels.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him, no. I know you mentioned Nicholas Worth, Joseph. Did you mention that he's the lead actor in Don't Answer the Phone?
No, I did not, but you just did.
I just did. And he also appeared in Craven Swamp Thing and also Invitation to Hell, which were made just around sort of the same type of time as Hills of Eyes Part 2.
I like Invitation to Hell.
I haven't seen it in quite a while. Is it any good?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a slower, but I liked it.
Redemption have released this on Blu-ray in the States. If anyone wants to pick up the Blu-ray and they live over there, apparently it's supposed to be a good transfer, although there's no extras. It was released over here on DVD, which I have. I'm watching in the background. Again, no extras, so which is why it's difficult to get any background information. Although I think you've been more successful, Justin.
Well, I've got not actually that much left, but a few bits and pieces. It was filmed, as you say, from what I can see, it's filmed in the fall of 1983, and it's shot around the Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree, 29 Palms, and Pioneer Town, wherever those places are. Somewhere obviously desert-based. Interestingly, the
Ireland.
film was... Sorry?
They're in Ireland.
No, they're not. Erik, you know what I'm going to say to you now.
What?
Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
It is weird.
Yes. It was, interestingly, there's a British link with this film because it was financed by two British businessmen, and one of them, or maybe both of them, were behind the VTC label, video label in the UK, which I have quite a lot of. They put out all sorts of great movies on video in the UK, like Zombie Holocaust, The Incubus, Return of the Boogeyman, Fulci's Black Cat, The Changeling, all sorts of different movies. And they basically got into financing feature films, and this is one of them. Originally, there were talks about this film being sequelised, The Hills of Eyes, as early as 1982. And it was meant to be part of a trio of sequels, which would have been Last House on the Left, Part 2, and also Mother's Day 2 as well, the Troma film. Neither of those got off the ground, but The Hills of Eyes Part 2 did get filmed eventually in 1983. What else do I have?
Aha,
here?
I knew it.
What?
Sorry, I know the sound clip that you keep playing that's tormenting Erik.
What is it?
I was right. It is Robert Davi. It's from Showgirls.
Yes. I played it last time. Yes, Erik, I can't believe you didn't get that.
Great movie.
Very, very bad.
But I've only watched it once, so...
Once?
Yeah.
Is that all?
That's all. I will be rewatching. I only watched it for the first time about a month ago.
Oh, man, I would have seen it like 20 times in that month.
No, Erik, you've disappointed
Erik, it's a Versace.
I enjoy having great tits. I do remember that line.
A couple of other things. The film was banned in Australia, or at least it had to be cut quite heavily. The censors refused a certificate for it when it was released down there. Now, the reason why that I've read that Craven disowned it, and the film didn't make a huge amount of sense at the end, and Ruby's death wasn't explained, was that the cut that Craven handed over to the people behind the money was a rough cut, and he'd always intended to go back for about 5 or 6 extra days worth of filming. And what happened was the producers said, "There's no more money. We're happy with what you've given us," and cut the movie without Craven. So he didn't have any say about how it's cut together or anything, and that's why he disowned it, and that's why the film doesn't make doesn't make sense. But things like Ruby's death is still a bit, you're not really sure if she's dead or she just got knocked out or what happened. And a lot of these things would have been reshot to tighten them up. So that's gleaned from a couple of books on Wes Craven with interviews from him, and the reason why he disowned it. But again, you know, even if he did shoot 5 or 6 extra days, this was never going to be, you know, like a top-notch thriller in the sense of, like, you know, it was always going to be a bad movie sequel in the best possible way. But I think Craven, like you said, Erik, would have directed Godzilla in Paris if he'd offered it. So he was definitely on autopilot, and he'd been asked to make presumably cash in on his own film, and make a kind of Friday the 13th style sequel. Now, the last thing I was going to say is there was an interview from when the film was being made with Michael Berryman, who said at the time that obviously he hadn't actually seen the finished film at that time, but he said that time was ripe to make The Hills of Ice Part 2, the sequel to The Hills of Ice, because all the films that had basically stole from The Hills of Ice had that whole cycle was running down. So now it was time for the true classic to be sequelized with another true classic, and obviously, as we know, it didn't quite work out that way. But yes, that's everything I have on The Hills of Ice Part 2.
Well, one film. Sorry. One film you mentioned there actually was on the VTC label. It reminded me of something else I noticed about Hills of Ice Part 2, and that is the criticism that it consists of a lot of flashback footage. Now, I got my stopwatch out. Does that sound rude?
It does sound a little bit rude, but yes.
Yeah. I used the stopwatch just to get a general idea of how much flashback footage there was, and it comes to a little over 5 minutes, which isn't that bad, and that's interspersed in the first maybe 35, 40 minutes of the film. So it's not that bad, and I was thinking of other films that use flashback to a much more extensive degree, and I came up with the Revenge of the Boogeyman, which you mentioned. It was one of them. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, and of course Crazy Fat Ethel 2 are all films that can be accused of using too much flashback footage. I'm sorry, Nathan, but it's true.
Did I hear Nathan sigh there?
He did, I think.
But maybe they could make Crazy Fat Ethel 3, couldn't they? And all they would have to do is just have the whole of the first film as a flashback.
Yeah.
But they just have maybe 15 minutes of new footage.
Well, it is only an hour movie, so
yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so I mean, for a film that's accused of using too much flashback footage, it's literally just over 5 minutes worth, which is not that much.
No.
I don't
think. Have we finished defending the film? Is there anything else you want to say about Erik, about your choice?
I think it's bad. Isn't that what Foster says that at one stage?
Yes.
About
the other little thing that I had was originally it was called Night of Jupiter. Was the original title.
All right.
There you go.
Was it going to be called like The Hills of Ice Part 2, Night of Jupiter, or just Night of Jupiter?
I presume so. It's just one of the books I saw that said it. The script was called Night of Jupiter.
All right.
So
I like the artwork and the tagline.
What's the tagline on this one again?
So you think you're lucky to be alive?
Oh. Yes.
And who's the animal expert among us? Is it Justin?
Justin.
Justin, is it possible, isn't it somewhat possible that Beast could have had a flashback?
Well, yeah, very possibly. Very possibly. He probably could have, had a flashback. There wouldn't be, especially if he's been through a traumatic incident.
Yeah, like, for instance, the cat that was taking down the Horror of the Zombies poster, when Justin goes up to him, like, after the podcast finished recording, the cat will be scared because Justin gave out to him.
Well, I didn't. I just kind of picked him up and gently popped him outside of the room. But he was being a little shit.
Who was it?
Lovely.
All right.
Justin, have you ever raised your voice to one of your cats?
No. Well, I've gone, don't do that, but I haven't raised my voice. We do sometimes clap if they start fighting, because that's what you're supposed to do.
All right.
Oh.
Because they don't like the sharp noise, and it kind of stops them. Because they kind of Captain Mannering, the stray, he's found his inner kitten, which is a good thing and a bad thing because he's such a massive cat. He's like a boulder covered in fur, like rolling around the house, sort of knocking things over. So he doesn't really know how to play with the other cats yet. But anyway, but I just heard him running down the stairs earlier. He just sounds like the Reaper running up and down the stairs. He's that big. So, is there anything else you want to say, Erik, on The Hills of Ice Part 2 before we move on to feedback?
No, I think I'm finished now. Apart from just to sum up, let's say I think we all agree that it's a decent film and it's underrated and underappreciated.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I just remembered a couple of other little things. Obviously, we mentioned about Kevin Blair was in Friday the 13th Part 7, but the other person who went on to some amount of fame was also, and I imagine this isn't the film she talks about massively, is Penny Johnson, who played Sue, who was the black girl who gets her boobies out. She went on to play Sherry Palmer in 24, The President's Wife in 24.
Yes, yeah.
The first few series of that. So I imagine this isn't a film that she talks about very much, but yes, there you go.
Yeah, she's actually in a lot of stuff. She seems to have had the most success out of any of the actors, I think, in it. Mainly on TV. But...
Yeah, well, it's kind of couldn't get her for the show. I wonder why.
Yeah.
But, right. What about you, Nathan and Joseph? Anything you want to say before we move on to feedback?
The hills have eyes, and they are green.
Thank you. Nathan, anything you want to sum up?
I like that the hills have eyes.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Well, let's move on to feedback. Shall we...
Actually, just one thing.
Sorry.
Isn't there? There's a hill near you that has a knob, isn't there?
There is. Lord Hereford's knob.
Yeah.
Yes. As a long-time listeners
knobs.
of the show will know that I've spent many a happy moment on top of Lord Hereford's knob.
I'm sure you have, yeah.
So, let's go on. Let's do a voicemail, shall we start off with? And I think with some trepidation, we have a voicemail from Patrick from Scream Queens, who we've been having a bit of a ding-dong with, haven't we, guys?
Yes.
So, let's find out what the ding of his dong is all about.
Hello, boys. It's Patrick from the Scream Queens Horror Podcast. How are you? Yeah, so let's talk about some things before we get into the meat of the matter here. I've been listening to the last few shows, and I've been playing along at home somewhat, as much as I can. I had to say Hospital Massacre I didn't like. I caught it on YouTube, and maybe the print was really dark, but it was hard to see a lot. But here's the thing. The things you thought were funny, that it was leaning towards comic, I never got that. What I got was inept. That just felt like terrible filmmaking. And I went back and started watching again with what you guys said in mind, and still it comes across as just awful, 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 awful writing, filmmaking all the way across. I just don't understand any of it. She never signed in, which means who's paying for this? You know? I mean, hospitals today, they'll kick you out if you don't have the right insurance with no problem whatsoever. But the fact that they're hanging on to her is crazy. It's hard to get an overnight in the hospital these days. And plus, what the hell was wrong with her? They showed those x-rays, and I don't know, her intestines looked like she swallowed, Christmas tinsel or something. I don't know what it was, some gross, hairy thing. And I don't know if you noticed, when they put the x-rays over each other, the intestines didn't quite line up with the body. So it looked like her intestines were hanging out on the inside. And if that was the problem, I think she might have known that her intestines were not in her body anymore. And the part that just really put me over the edge was when she was fighting, and the doctors come in and they're holding her down, saying that she's having some kind of a seizure. And the one doctor, the one with like the bitchin' 70s mustache, goes, "If she continues this kind of behavior, I'm going to have to operate." On what? What are you going to operate on? You don't have authorization for an operation. None of this makes any sense. This is inept. Plus, you didn't like her fiancé. I have to tell you, her fiancé was the only character in the entire movie that I sympathized with. Okay, listen. Do you know how hard it is to try to get someone to either drive you to or pick you up from the hospital? It is even harder than trying to get someone to drive you to the airport, okay? And the fact that he did that and sat out there, I thought was really, really sweet of him. And plus, she forgot all about that motherfucker. At no point did she say, my fiancé is waiting out in the car and he's double parked. Why don't I just run out and get him? Why don't I let him know what's going on? Something horrible's happening with my diagnosis? Maybe he should be here with me. No, she forgot all about him. So I think she was just using him for his body.
Are you crying,
or the
Nathan?
car. She's probably just using him for rides because he was a nice guy. And your argument was that at no point did he confront the doctors. Now, hold on to that thought for a minute, because I'm going to come back to that, because I'm going to switch gears a little bit and switch over to the movie Compliance. Granted, I have not seen that, but I remember seeing the 2020 special about the incident, the real-life incident when it happened. And the thing that ties it in for me with Hospital Madness is there's that famous study. What it's called, I don't remember. Bradford knows all this stuff, but he's not here. That it was this famous study where they realized that people will do just about anything that someone in a lab coat or a uniform will tell them to do. The famous experiment with the lab coats, that they had people inflicting electric torture basically on each other because people in white lab coats told them to. They never questioned why. They just did it because it was like, okay, someone in authority, I'm going to do that. And the same thing happens with police. Granted, both of these are taken to an extreme, but it's just something to think about. There's some psychological thing that's not stupidity. It's authority. There's also that famous experiment where they put college kids. They closed down a building of the college. They made it into a pseudo-prison. Some people were guards, some people were prisoners, and almost immediately everybody adapted into the slave master mindset, and they actually had to shut the experiment down because, people were getting tortured and raped, and it was crazy. So I'm going to give my little guy from Hospital Nightmare a little credit just because, he's not that stupid. He's not that stupid. He's just obeying orders. And plus, here's the other thing. Nathan, you were giving him a lot of grief because he fell back when the guy was coming at him with the saw and he was like, oh, somebody help me. Yet you didn't give any guff to the nurse in the hallway who did the exact same thing. She starts to run away from the guy coming at her with the sheet. She doesn't even fall down. She basically just lies down in the hallway and goes, oh, God, somebody help me. It was the exact same line that he said. So if you're going to give him guff, you have to give her guff, too. That's what I got to say. Yeah.
You're taking this far too seriously.
I'm really glad you guys watched The Hole. Granted, I haven't seen The Hole. I've seen The Hole, the other versions of The Hole, but I have not seen the pornographic version. But I find it really funny that neither one of you finished it. And let me make something very apparent. That we all read between the lines. We all know exactly what that meant. Neither one of you finished the movie because you climaxed. And you both needed naps.
No, let's go to work.
Well, let's get to the meat of the matter, shall we?
I've never done
Let's talk about that puppy you stole from me. Sure, it's a popular phrase in the popular lexicon, but nobody else was using it as their catchphrase sign-off, were they? And don't you tell me you might have accidentally done it, because I warned you several times. You've done it 5 times now, Justin. 5. Once is a mistake.
Bite me.
2 could be a mistake. 3 times you're just trying to get my goat, and now you're just being a dick. Granted, you didn't say it this last time, but you know what? I don't care.
Oh, it stopped finally. Oh, I thought he was going to come in and say something at the end of it.
Wow, look at that. 5 o'clock shadow.
Well, I should have done this because Patrick only gives his people on his show 3 minutes. So, Patrick, you've overshot yourself there.
And can I say a couple of things?
I'm taking down the voicemail number.
This is war.
He went off on my pick.
Yes, Nathan.
So let me just say 2 things. Number 1, how dare you? And number 2, you can't watch a movie like Hospital Massacre and expect realism. It's a cheesy slasher movie. It's cheesy. Like, how many of the slasher movies we love are inept? We just covered one. And I love it too.
Yeah,
I'm going to do my best Patrick impression here. I'm just going to say that him stealing from prom night to call you a thief, Justin. I will be.
Yes. Oh dear, the gloves are off. Aren't
you
they?
should start putting Hysteria continues with a Z.
And every time we intro into the show, say, this is Justin from the Hysteria Continues.
I'm a goth, Patrick, and so are you.
Patrick, we love you, as you know. And I think it's time to call a truce, isn't it? Don't you think, guys?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's time to call a truce because we love the Scream Queens podcast. So we're going to call a truce. And even though you basically defecated in our ears with that awful caterwauling. He did. We forgive you, Patrick, and we'll move on. Shall we? Let's draw a line under it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that.
We agree with that, don't we, guys? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peace and
We'll
love. Let's move on, Patrick, and we'll never speak of this again, will we?
No.
So, okay. Well, thank you, Patrick, for phoning in. It's always a pleasure, and we'll move on with our lives now in harmony, perhaps. So, who would like to go next? Who's got something to read out? We've got another voicemail, but I've got a few ones we've had held over from last time. But
I will start.
Okay.
I guess. This is from Bill Ackerman from Elkton, Maryland. Maryland, whatever it is. I've been there. I should be able to pronounce it. Anyway, he says, to Justin, Erik, Joseph, and Nathan, I first became aware of the Hysteria Live site and later the Hysteria Continues podcast due to my love of Mortuary. I was happily surprised to see some appreciation for this fun, trashy, near-forgotten sleeper. When I discovered the podcast and saw some of the other titles covered by that point, it was immediately apparent that this was an aficionado series, devoting attention to more than just the biggest franchise titles and cult favorites, lucky enough to get a DVD release. We were talking Curtains, Funeral Home, House of Death, Terror at Red Wolf Inn. Before long, I was hooking up my VCR again and digging out old forgotten favorites. Much like how Stephen Thrower's Essential Nightmare USA helpfully gathers many of the greatest dreamlike, almost arty 1970s horror films like Messiah of Evil, Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and Friday the 13th, The Orphan, into one generous overview, I feel like your collective work is not only terrifically entertaining, but has real value as film scholarship. Ooh, that's very nice of him to say. Honestly, what other resource could one turn to for behind-the-scenes details on Fatal Games or Rush Week? Your interview segments for both Mortuary and My Bloody Valentine, for example, easily beat the special features on their respective DVD editions. That's very kind of him to say that. I've listened to every episode, most of them at least twice, and I'm hopelessly addicted now. It's to the point where I've blind bought titles like Rush Week, Fatal Frames, A Night to Dismember, and The Last Slumber Party, largely so that I can enjoy your episodes devoted to them without fear of spoilers. While I hope to hear you eventually cover more films I already know and love, like Sleepaway Camp, Fade to Black, Just Before Dawn, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, Final Exam, Girls Night Out, and Alice, Sweet Alice, and Christmas Evil, and Madman, and some of the bigger franchise films and sequels, I'm even more delighted when you cover obscurities, like your Fatal Games, Island of Blood, and Body Count episodes. Films I skipped over in the video stores when I was young because they looked lousy, like Humongous and The Final Terror, and even films I saw which I remember actually being lousy, like Splatter University and Savage Weekend, that you compel me to revisit and find, to my surprise, that they're kind of enjoyable. I know that this feedback is probably too long to read aloud in its entirety on the air, even though I just did, but seriously, thank you all for the work you do. Best, Bill Ackerman.
Oh, well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you very
maybe
much.
Yes.
Patrick would like to take a note out of his book in feedback.
I think
Only
so.
joking, Patrick.
I thought we called a truce.
We have called a truce, Patrick. So
Yeah.
so no more mentions of that. But no, thank you, Bill. Well, I'm really glad you've been enjoying it. We enjoy putting it together. So and we've got you've got plenty more in you, haven't you, Erik?
What?
I mean, episodes.
Oh, right. Yes. I'm sure
Who else but Justin?
Right. Okay. Well, no, thank you, Bill. I'm just trying to think. Well, it's nice to think. It'd be nice to put everything together, wouldn't it? All of the background information. We should do our own little book at some point, shouldn't we?
Although we are just stealing the information from other sources. So.
Well, that is true. That is true.
It's not like we're interviewing the original people. Although in some cases we do, but
in some cases
We're
we have.
putting our own spin on it.
Indeed. Right. Well, thank you
you're
very much,
You're
Bill.
full of funny voices today, Joseph.
He is.
Am I? You know, I often wanted to be on the radio. I often thought I had what it takes to be an actor. But alas, I was not. Sorry.
You have got a face for radio.
Oh, I'm sorry, I mentioned Patrick again. We're drawing the line here. Sorry.
We are drawing the line, Joseph. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, shall I? Because I've got quite a few. I've got 3 letters to read back, or bits of feedback to read back.
You read one then. Yeah.
I'll read one out. This is from Rachel, aka Scarlet Letter, and some of these are going back a little way. We haven't done. What's the word for it? We've had some left over from last time, so apologies we haven't read your feedback out last time. We had a slight break, but this is. Long-time reader of your fabulous site, and I'd meant to buy your book for ages and now just picked it up from the local Barnes & Nobles here in sunny Calabasas. I don't know where Calabasas is. Where is that?
Yeah, Calabasas.
Where is it?
It's California.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm loving it so far, but wish you could have included a lot of interviews, but then again, I guess they'd be next to impossible considering all the content you have. I also listen to your podcast and think you guys do an amazing job and are very funny. I get chastised for laughing at some of your humour by my girlfriends, but they don't get it. Really. I wanted to ask, but not sure if it's a sore subject, but I'm curious if the three of you prefer the same sex, find any women in slasher films attractive in a I'd consider breaking a rule type of way. I know that's a weird question, but I'm writing a paper on gay horror fans for a fanzine, and it's part of the process. I'm bisexual myself, and I find the horror genre a surprisingly large gay crowd in its fan base. Will it soon become a stereotype? And she goes on a little bit. Nathan, who floats your boat?
Well, I wouldn't say there's any woman that I would, switch teams for necessarily, but I've got no problem admitting, that there are some women that are very attractive. I always thought that Michelle Bauer, like in Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers and Nightmare Sisters, I always loved her look. I think she's a very, very attractive woman.
Okay, what about you, Erik?
Probably none, as with Nathan, but if I had to, maybe Pamela Susan Shoop in Halloween 2 with her big balloons.
This is the guy who likes Bob Hoskins. It's going to be kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Joseph?
Or maybe the hitchhiker in Friday the 13th final chapter.
Really? Okay. Yeah, fair enough. What about you, Joseph? Who would you switch teams for?
I don't know. I don't think there's anyone in a slasher film that I think's attractive. I guess if I were going... Well, I guess Hart Bachner in Terror Train. He's kind of attractive.
Too bad Demon Knight's not a slasher, because I think you would for Billy Zane in that movie.
Yeah, I would go gay for Billy Zane.
Right, okay. Well, I'd probably for Amy Steele, so there you go. So, just to finish off Rachel's letter, she says, also, I think Erik is probably the one who makes me laugh the most. So, you're the mostest, Erik.
Sorry?
You're the mostest. Oh. Isn't that what Jan Brady says?
You're the host with the most.
Yes.
And you're not a ghost.
Nathan's picks are always a hoot, and she says that I'm a good ringleader. So she's also been hearing stuff about me. As for Joseph, I find he is probably the most opinionated, don't we know it? But that's actually a good thing, and that boy has the most amazing pair of eyes I've ever seen. Fan self, she puts in brackets.
Photoshop.
And if he's ever in Casablanca or whatever it is, he should look me up. And she says she's looked at our Facebook page and our personal pictures far too much. So thank you for stalking us, Rachel, a.k.a. Scarlet Letter.
I'll be there. I'll be there this afternoon, so give me your address.
Okay. Look for the one with
the contact. It's only across the country.
Yeah, it's only a 5-minute drive, so.
Okay. Right, who would like to go next?
I'll go.
I can go. Oh, no, Erik, you go.
Okay, I got one here from our good friend Tosca Top Socks.
Yay.
He says, howdy, Joseph, Justin, Erik, and Nathan. Thanks for the Nail Gun Massacre podcast. Hysterical as always.
First.
Sorry?
He said my name first.
He said my name third.
I win. I win.
My name's usually last on everybody's, but it's like you're
like the Ringo Starr of the podcast.
Alphabetically, it is. Yeah. Anyway, he goes on to say, I've still to check out what promises to be the best slasher since Friday the 13th. He's, of course, talking about Nail Gun Massacre, but it's on my baby Jesus wish list. It's been a while, so I thought I would catch you and your listeners up with what I've seen recently. Despite your less than glowing reviews, I caught up with Detention as it was free to view on Love Film streaming, and I have to say that whilst it was off the wall to say the least, I really had a blast and found myself getting quite engrossed in the time-bending shenanigans. I also had Grabbers arrive from Love Film, and I must admit I was a tad disappointed as I was really looking forward to a bit of monster mayhem. Not a bad film, just not great, and my high hopes were let down slightly. My one revelation, though, was a film from the 80s, I think, called Venom. It stars Oliver Reed and everyone's favourite weirdo, Klaus Kinski. I remember seeing it as a kid, so I was pleased to see that it had gone across to Love Film streaming. I couldn't remember very much about it apart from the fact that it involved a big old snake, so watching it again brought back fond memories. It was never going to win any Oscars, but if you fancy a slasher with a snake as the main killer, you could do worse. Great fun, check it out. Finally, I have to say that I have been very disturbed of late as I am getting the feeling that our dear old Erik is getting bullied by you guys. Yay, go Tosca. Erik is obviously very sensitive, caring, and possibly has a chunky Kit Kat addiction. Well, that's true. It is clear that you guys push him around a bit and pick on him. We don't want the podcast to turn into Slaughter High Part 2, so you have to play nice. Anywho, you guys...
How can you just look at me like that and laugh at me? You're satisfied, I suppose, that Ralph couldn't come.
That's what it's like. I'm totally picked on Inga style. Anywho, you guys be good and keep up the fab work. Love and best wishes, Tosca Top Socks. Kev.
Oh, thank you, Tosca.
Yay!
Yay.
Can I just say, though, I don't think I bully Erik.
No, Nathan
I think
doesn't.
Joseph and Justin do.
They do.
Hey.
Mainly
I
Justin.
don't.
Mainly me, Erik. I see. The thing
Yeah.
is, what people don't realise is behind the scenes, Eric's always sending nasty messages to me on Facebook.
I am not. I am not.
True. This
This is true. Is that not true? Does
What did you
Erik
say
not?
this morning? You called him Gothy Gotherson the third.
Yeah.
And you told him you were going to kill his parents.
No.
Yes, you did,
So
Erik, and
that's
you send
so
pictures. You send horrible pictures of Susie, and you
Now
kind
you're
of
just bullying me again by saying I send horrible things. I didn't.
What
I
did you?
did say
What
that
did you change the name of the conversation on Facebook to, Erik?
Oh, snaky, snaky, snaky.
No, before that.
Is this your rubber?
Sorry?
Is this your rubber?
He called you a doo-doo head.
Yeah. So I think, but the people listening, the good folks at home listening, when Eric's doing or playing the victim, in fact, you know, there's something
all I
more
said
going
was
on.
Justin wears women's panties, is what I said. And that's nothing.
Yeah, what's true amongst a whole cavalcade of other insults that the good
You know
folks
what Erik
at home
is?
haven't heard.
Erik is the Alan from Sleepaway Camp 4 of the podcast. He claims he gets bullied, but he's actually the bully.
I am not the bully. I am the one who gets bullied. Now nobody's going to believe me now. Anyway,
well, we're
Venom.
calling a truce, aren't we? We've got this is the Peacemaker podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. So Patrick, we're not going to say anything about you anymore.
No.
We're drawing a line right now.
We are drawing that line.
Oh, I mean,
So-
I'm sorry, Erik.
Even though we were supposed to have drawn that line 20 minutes ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about Patrick now,
I
are
know
we?
we're talking
No.
about Erik.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Erik.
Yes.
Oops.
Draw the line for Erik now. No more
Draw the line
bullying.
for Erik. Draw it in the
no
sand.
bullying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you
go sit down.
You're the ones who bully me. You're the ones to draw.
Go sit down behind the line, Erik.
Anyway, Venom. I saw Venom a few years ago and I did really enjoy it. Anyone else seen it?
No, I want to.
Oliver Reed and Klaus Kinski? Snake in a House?
Oh, yes. No, I did watch it a couple of months ago on Love Film Streaming.
Which is
with
where
Susan George.
Is it like your version of Netflix?
Well, yes, we get Netflix here now, but it's basically that, except they actually do send out DVDs by post as well. But
Netflix used to do it. I don't think they do it anymore. Or they might still. I don't know.
I think they still do, but it's not as popular as just watching streaming on TV.
Yeah.
But
now,
it is
is it
streaming
love
here now.
film? Like you love film? Is that what it's called?
It's called Love Film. Yes,
Okay.
it's one word. So, but no, well, thank you ever so much, Tosca. I have another. Shall I read out the next one?
Yeah.
Because I've got 2 more to go, and then we've got another voicemail. Dear Justin and Co., enjoyed your latest show. Nail Gun Massacre has bumped to the top of my Netflix queue. I hope that's the version that doesn't edit out the grinding buns. That's as important to me as campy acting and Eric's alluring accent. So you've got a fan here, Erik.
Yay. Thank you.
You probably won't need this, but here's some Hospital Massacre bits I found on the net. It says Barbie Benton debuted in 1970s The Naughty Cheerleader, a.k.a. How Did a Nice Girl Like You Get Into This Business? Also, Klaus Kinski, the legendary schizoid actor, who starred in 1980's slasher Schizoid alongside Donna Jaws 2 Wilkes and Craig Wasson, the male lead from Brian De Palma's Body Double, is a co-star in that film. Currently on Amazon's website, VHS tapes of Hospital Massacre, released back in the day through Metro Golden Mayer United Artists Home Video, labelled as new and sealed, go for $129.99, that is. And the collectible tape goes for $99.75. So, pretty expensive. Not even the 17th anniversary Blu-ray edition of Citizen Kane is worth half that. So take that, Kane, LOL. According to information found on the IMDb boards, where we go, it would seem that the exteriors were filmed in the Los Angeles area, but the interiors were filmed on a soundstage somewhere in Israel, most likely Tel Aviv. The prologue set at Susan's house in 1961 was probably filmed in Los Angeles area also. It seems unlikely they would fly the 3 child actors all the way to Israel just this one brief scene. My favourite observation from one of the film's IMDb fans, and yes, he's capitalised the whole thing, which obviously you can't see, but it says, the doctor takes her blood pressure after placing her hair just so you have a good look at Barbie's nipples. A customer posting from Amazon reports that Scream Factory, the horror branch of Shout Factory, which I think we've mentioned, now have the rights to this and will be releasing it in 2013. And one unrelated tidbit, just caught 2012's The Pact on Netflix streaming. It says, I can't remember if we've discussed this, but if you haven't, it's a must-see. It's a slasher hidden in the house story angle amongst the supernatural shenanigans, and it's as creepy as hell. P.S. Actually, have any of you seen The Pact? I did see... It got a cinema release here briefly.
Is that on Netflix?
We talked about.
I wonder.
I think I saw it.
We did. You talked about it, didn't you, Erik? I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I was saying it's not bad. It's kind of it's worth checking. It'd be interesting to see what you think, Nathan and Joseph. So, Andy. Sorry.
Oh, I said I'll have to check it out.
Cool. Okay. And he says, P.S. I hope all of you are beside yourself with absolute joy at the news that a never-released duet by Toya Wilcox and Susie Sue has been discovered. It's a remake of that Groovy's Eurythmics song, Sisters Are Doing It With Themselves. So this is all coming together, as it were, with Patrick's Yoko Ono and Toya mega monster mix.
I'm just going to go ahead and say we're not going to mention Patrick anymore.
No, we're not mentioning Patrick anymore, just in passing. And it says, and it finishes with, oh, wait a second, I think I dreamt that when I fell asleep last night trying to watch Terror at 10 Killer for the 5th time. And that is Javier from New York City, has written before. So thank you ever so much, Javier.
Yeah.
Always good to hear from you.
Yes, I would be intrigued to hear that duet, though.
It would be, yes. Well, it might have sounded like Yoko Ono was doing it with herself, didn't it?
It did a bit.
Earlier, so. Right. Okay, who would like to go next?
Me.
Okay, Nathan.
Okay. Can you guys please do an episode on Killer's Moon, the 1978 British proto-slasher about mental hospital inmates who escape and take LSD that allows them to think they can rape and murder at their will? It also contains the famous line of dialogue, "Look, you were only raped. As long as you don't tell anyone about it, you'll be all right. You pretend it never happened, I'll pretend I never saw it, and if we get out of this alive, well, maybe we'll both live to be wives and mothers." Oh my God, at that line. I love Killer's Moon. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, a few episodes ago, or perhaps it was just this last episode, Erik and Joseph mentioned their shared but very different, I presume, love for Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Have either of you guys seen Smashed? It's not a horror movie, but it stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead as an alcoholic trying to get sober, and she does some serious, impressive dramatic work. She was in the talks for a Best Actress nomination for the movie in the Oscar stateside, but obviously that never came to pass. Definitely worth checking out for fans like us used to seeing her bloodied. And that's from Declan Gallagher. I like your name, Declan. Just saying.
As for Mary
sounds
Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah, it's an interesting name. I like it.
Yeah. As for Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I want to stick my psychedelic fur in her velvet underground.
Oh, Joseph.
You are filth. How dare you?
On filth, Joseph.
I haven't seen Smashed, but I did see her in Make It Happen, which is kind of like a flash dance movie where she has to audition for a posh dance school. And she totally...
I want to audition for a posh dance school.
She totally dances her arse off in that movie.
I want to dance my arse off.
Sorry, what you say, Nathan?
She's also in
Death Proof. She was in Death Proof.
She was in the 2 latest Die Hard films as well.
Yeah.
Die Hard?
She had a cameo. Yeah, she had a cameo in the 5th one, and she was like a main character in the 4th one. I like her.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Declan. Have we got anyone else got any... I've got one more voicemail and one more email to read. Are you guys spent?
We are.
I'm spent.
Okay. Right. Well, this
You got a cheesecake to eat.
That's true.
Yes, we'll be finishing up shortly. We are coming up to the... we're not quite 3 hours, so it's not the longest. It's not the longest one we've ever had.
Certainly not.
No.
I've had longer.
Yes. Okay. Well, this is from Lick. That's it again. Nick
You're
Lombardo.
filthy.
I do apologise, Nick.
You're so filthy.
There's something on my mind. So, hey guys, I just wanted to write in and tell you how much I love listening to the podcast since I first discovered it a couple of months ago. I do a horror film series at Colonial Theatre where the original Blob was filmed, and we have run many classic slasher films on 35mm, including My Bloody Valentine, Pieces, Friday the 13th, Seven, Silent Night, Bloody Deadly Night, and Popcorn, with upcoming screenings of Prom Night, Halloween, Halloween 2, and New Year's Evil planned for this year. One of the things I love about your show is that you discuss many films I loved and never get any coverage, such as Savage Weekend, The Slayer, and The Last Slumber Party, which I've loved if for nothing more than Chris constantly delivering her dialogue like Nancy Loomis in Halloween. It's great to hear your thoughts on these little scene gems. Any chance of covering Sleepaway Camp or 2001's Valentine on a future show? Thanks again, guys. Keep up the good work. All the best. Nick, not Lick, Lombardo. But from Westchester, PA, which is that? What's PA? Is that
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania. Okay, right. Well, thank you, Nick. I'm sure we will get round to Sleepaway Camp actually, probably fairly soon, I imagine. And I'd quite like to revisit Valentine at some point.
That's a movie. The more I watch it, the more I like it.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
because I hated it the first time I saw it, but I would like to cover that film at some point.
I wonder if it ever get an uncut release.
I wish.
Because it'd be great to get an uncut release of that and Cherry Falls on the same as a double bill, wouldn't it?
Oh, I'd buy it.
I would as well. So
I have to say I'm glad that he brought up the way Chris delivers her lines in The Last Slumber Party, because I listened to that episode just a few weeks ago, and Erik said that she delivers her lines like "nye nye 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 nye."
So are we actually caught up on all the feedback now?
We have.
Well,
I've got one voicemail.
Okay.
Shall I play the last voicemail?
That will catch us up finally.
I've just two quick shout-outs. One is to our friend Count Fosco at the Movie Matters podcast, who's about to endure Hills of Ice Part 2, Craven's shit on his original. So we'll see how things turn out. Let us know what you think, Count Fosco. I think he'll be unimpressed. The other one I have is my friend Paul Chandler. He lives in London. You'll like this one, actually, Nathan. He says that both he and his civil partner Dominic both prefer X-Ray to Halloween 2.
Wow!
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so I'm questioning their sanity. As much fun as X-Ray is, but
they're awesome. Well, I'm curious, Erik. Does that mean you've ever questioned my sanity?
Well, I did at the start, but now I just take it for granted. Yeah.
You have a sanity?
Yeah.
I'm not the only person out there that loves Crazy Fat Ethel too. I'm just saying.
There's more of you out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
There are.
That's a sobering thought.
As Michael Berryman says in Hills of Ice Part 2, I ain't the only crazy out here.
Right, well, let's get on to the last voicemail is coming up now.
Hey, Hysteria crew. It's Nudie. I am a fan. I've been listening to your show since day one. I just finished listening to your Hospital Massacre show, and I loved it. I can't wait for this movie to come out on Shock Factory Blu-ray. I pretty much bought almost all of their releases so far, and they're all pretty kick-ass. The price is a little steep, but what are you going to do? They're putting out some great releases. Justin, I bought your book through Amazon over here. It's the retitled Slasher Movie Book, and I love that as well. Just wanted to let you guys know you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And matron, please!
Thank you.
What a way to go out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Nice voicemail to take us out of the show. And it's always good to, please, we are now out of feedback. So are we going to say what we're going to watch next, or we'll talk about next time, so the good folks at home can play along?
Normally it would be my pick, but since it's going to fall somewhat on a holiday, Nathan gets to go next. So, Nathan?
Well, Marty Ranson majored in cutting classmates in Slaughter High.
Oh, yes. So we're going back to school on April Fool's Day. Well, not quite April Fool's Day, but
hold on, baby, we're taking you back to school.
Justin, you can put your feet up for the next fortnight because you are already an encyclopedia on Slaughter High.
Yes, well, I've already done the. I did a commentary with the director for the UK release, so I have lots of information unless I've thrown it away, but I don't think so on that film. So it should be quite an in-depth. We'll be getting right in there, won't we, Erik?
We will. Deep.
We will be drilling deep into Slaughter High next time. I'm just as an aside, I'm off to Glasgow tomorrow for this film festival. Well, not film festival. It's the slasher movie, Slice and Dice Slasher Movie Forever, the documentary we talked about, which is going to be released. I can't remember when the release date is, but it's being shown at the Glasgow Cinema tomorrow with a special uncut screening of Intruder as well. So I'm going to have it, and it's going to have a question and answer session with Norman Warren, who directed the Brit kind of slasher terror. He's going to be there, so that should be quite interesting. And also going to be doing commentary for Slice and Dice Forever, and also doing some commentaries on trailers as well, which is going to be a bonus disc, I think, of slasher trailers. So that should be quite a lot of fun. So I shall have some news about that when we come back.
Excellent.
Anything we want to do before we wrap up? And we won't be.
I just want to say,
just
in case you didn't get it, we're drawing the line with someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're just going to say we're going to end the show with some music. But anything we want to say before we say goodbye?
Do we need to give out the feedback details?
Oh yeah, shall we? Yeah. If you want to get in contact with the show, here's how.
Be sure to search for and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at THC_podcast. Our voicemail is 858-233-9281. And you can email us directly at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com.
Okay.
Halloween music. Yay.
Well, write in or phone and let us know what you think of the show. And let us know what you think of Slaughter High. Maybe before next time we can read that out. Or, we look forward to hearing back from you. So, is that it, guys? Is that we finished?
We are.
Shall we play out? Would that play out with some? I thought it was an appropriate song. It's a song that we've just discovered, isn't it?
Yes. You told me about this during the week. I had a listen. It sounds really good.
Yeah. We want to share it.
Too. Mm-hmm.
We want to share it with you, good folks. So we'll speak to you all soon.